Trish Gleason, Assistant City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 9th, 2024. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's public hearing. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the public hearing they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and are posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate what public hearing you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you are participating via phone, indicate which public hearing you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/council contacts and through the city clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information may be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance at tonight's session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Roussel.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
The first item on tonight's agenda is the consent item. Consent item number 1 is Dubuque Racing Association financing documents.
So before I take a motion, I will ask, is there anyone who wants to hold this item for separate discussion? Anyone here? Is there anyone virtually who would like to hold it for separate discussion? Okay. Anything from the city clerk's office? Yeah.
If I could mention, Alex Dixon does have a short presentation, if that's all right.
On the consent item or the public hearing?
Oh, the public hearing item.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
You got me there, sorry.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. So no one wants to hold this item for separate discussion, so I'll entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
with receive and file, and that's it.
Second by Spring.
Okay, motion by Jones, second by Sprank to receive and file. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Farber.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
Resnick.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Roussel.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next on the agenda are the public hearings. The first public hearing is the Dubuque Racing Association lease. Dubuque Racing Association Phase 2 financing amended leasehold management.
Mr. Mayor,
Mortgage, I'm sorry.
That's all right, Trish. Yes, Mr. Jones.
move to receive and file the documents and adopt the resolution.
Second by Wethel.
Got a motion by Jones and a second by Wethel. I'm going to go to Krenna first, please.
Back up, there are 2 resolutions.
Are there?
Yes, it's resolutions.
It's an S.
I see only one.
Oh, is there just one? Okay.
Good point, there is only.
Okay, yep, there's only one. I did it in 2 last time. I combined them this time, so
Gotcha.
sorry.
Okay, so we have one resolution there. So we do,
Yes.
just to clarify then, we have a motion to receive and file and adopt the resolution on the one resolution by Mr. Jones and a second by Wethel. So I'll go to you first, Krenna, and then Mr. Dixon and I will come back to you for
Yes.
a presentation.
Carter Bromwell, City Attorney. The City of Dubuque, in conjunction with the Dubuque Racing Association and community participants, have worked diligently for years to procure a Chaplain Schmidt Island Master Plan and Schmidt Island Placemaking and Implementation Plan. Work on implementation of the plans has been ongoing. The biggest project to date has been the Veterans Memorial. A community project funding grant was received via Representative Hinson for construction of the Veterans Memorial Trailhead project and will be constructed this year. In 2022, the city invested millions of dollars in improvements to ImOn Arena, and additional improvements to the arena are currently in process. The Chaplain Schmidt Island Master Plan was adopted in 2014, then amended in 2017. The Chaplain Schmidt Island Placemaking and Implementation Plan was adopted in 2017. The goals of the plan were largely recreational focused and included connecting and expanding access to the riverfront, creating educational opportunities on the island, highlighting the unique characteristics of the island, bringing new visitors there, and offering activities and events for all seasons. The DRA, in partnership with the City of Dubuque, has proposed approximately $155 million in public and private improvements to the island. The improvements completed or proposed include, under the heading of public improvements, the Iowa Amphitheater on Chaplain Schmidt Island, the Veterans Memorial Trailhead Project, Chaplain Schmidt Island connectivity and access improvements, including a railroad overpass at 14th Street, sanitary sewer improvements, and ImOn Ice Arena improvements. Under the heading of private improvements falls the construction of a new 7-story, 90-room Hilton Tapestry Collection hotel adjacent to the existing Hilton Garden Inn, which will include an upscale rooftop restaurant, lounge, and event space which overlooks the river. An interior casino remodel, which includes an elevated bar with bar-top slot machines, an updated showroom, and a new sports book and sports bar. There will be new banquet space and party rooms, and the addition of a family entertainment zone for all ages that have high-end arcade games. And exterior improvements at the casino will include facade, signage, landscaping, and surface parking. These private improvements on the island necessitate an amendment to the lease between the city and the DRA and financing of the improvements by the DRA. And the lender for the DRA, which is Midwest One Bank, requires the city consent to an amendment to its leasehold mortgage as part of this. So an amendment to the lease has been negotiated between the city and DRA for Lot 1 of Chaplain Schmidt Island that contains the area where the casino, the existing hotel, restaurant, and then new hotel will be located. The amendment is to Section 12, and it increases the total DRA project cost from $80 million to $85 million, which considers an additional $3 million in costs related to the Phase 2 improvements, and then provides a $2 million level of additional capacity to account for project changes and/or modifications during the construction process. The balance of the existing lease terms remain the same. The amendments to the lease and then the consent to the amended leasehold mortgage have been reviewed and negotiated between the parties, and we are here tonight for a public hearing on both of those items, and I am respectfully requesting approval. And at this time, I will turn it over to Alex Dixon for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Karina.
Good evening. My name is Alex Dixon. I humbly serve as the president and CEO at Q Casino and DRA. This is an exciting night. No pictures because a lease says 1,000 words, and it's amazing to be able to get to this point. We've been discussing it for the past 2.5 years, and I'd formally like to invite all the city council members as well as staff out to the groundbreaking. With formal approval tonight, we'll go before the Iowa Racing Gaming Commission, and subject to their approval, as well as the loan financing closing on the 19th, we'll be hosting on Tuesday, April 23rd at 12:30 p.m. At the new site of the new Hilton Tapestry Hotel, a great groundbreaking. This will be historic for our community, and it couldn't be possible without each and every one of you. And so tonight may seem like a small step, but it's been a series of dialogue that we've taken place over the years. And so I just couldn't be more grateful for Krina, for Tanya on our team, for the city manager, Mike, as well as all the staff. And that's just on the casino development. We will be back before you for an updated development plan that we've been working hard with RDG. Thank you again for the great work session that we had not too long ago. There continues to be a lot of exciting momentum across the island. You can literally, I had a post on Facebook the other day about all the John Deere tractors and front loaders and back loaders and every other kind of loader they're making down there at John Deere Dubuque Works. But it's exciting times, and so grateful, happy to answer any questions, but I think Corinna summed it up very well about what you have before you tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
Well, first off, we are in a public hearing to consider City Council approval of the amendment to the Dubuque Racing Association lease and consent to the amended leasehold mortgage. Do we have any public input about this item? I see none here. Do we have any virtual input? Thank you very much. Anything from the city clerk's office? Thank you very much. Then back to us for discussion or questions. Yeah, Ms. Farber.
Corinna, could I just ask you a question as to whether or not I need to recuse myself on this vote? Thank you.
The easy answer to that is it's up to you. For purposes of conflict of interest, unless you have a direct financial conflict, you are able to participate in a vote. But you may obviously opt if you feel more comfortable choosing to abstain.
Right, and just because I serve on Midwest One's, I basically chair a committee for Midwest One, so I think I would recuse myself from this vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Farber. All right. Any other discussion or questions? All right. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Dixon, I was hoping you would take this opportunity to tell our citizens what is the local effect of this resolution in this building. There's a lot of excitement, and a lot of planning went into this. And I don't know if you can say it all in 5 minutes or however long, but could you tell our citizens really what is the purpose and what is the effect of this change tonight going to do to our hometown Dubuque?
Absolutely. So we'll first start with the actual, amended lease. And again, it's just a quick reminder, and I think it's very important that we kind of continue to remind the community about the unique relationship that we have between the DRA and the city. We are one of 2 nonprofit casinos in America. We are organized as a 501c4. We got our start because this body, back in the mid '80s, approved the $7 million general obligation bond to bring Greyhound racing here. And so as that business has morphed, we then added slots, and we then added tables, sports betting, and now we're a full-fledged casino. What we just recently announced is that we have changed our branding from Q Casino to Q Casino and Resort because we are partnering together on this $155 million initial investment of public and private partnership to really make Schmidt Island a regional destination. There is an opportunity to work not only with existing tenants, but future tenants, existing users and future users to make sure that we are attracting customers from the broader 2-hour radius around Dubuque to our region and giving them more reasons why they should come and stay. But we also want to make sure we have great amenities for our local citizens and residents. And so the first phase has been to redo our core casino product. We are ahead of schedule to be opening up our new casino this summer. We then are going to be moving forward with our new family entertainment zone, which will be an area where people of all ages can come and enjoy a great, we're calling it Island Social, but the best example is a Dave & Buster's type of a concept where you can have great fun in an arcade, duck pin bowling, as well as axe throwing. And so that is well underway, and that has already been, construction is literally underway on site. But what we're able to do tonight is to move forward with at least an amendment that would allow us to build this beautiful 7-story, 90-room Hilton Tapestry branded hotel. And it will have a beautiful rooftop restaurant overlooking the bluffs as well as overlooking the river. This will take a little under 2 years to develop, but you got to start somewhere. And really tonight is it. because with the approval of the DRA that we've approved, and as well as now with this body, we can go to a bank, get a 30-year mortgage to build this great facility, reinvest in our facility so that we can keep generating revenue, keep generating profits to be able to give, again, 1/3 of those profits goes to the city, 1/3 of those profits goes to charity, and then 1/3 of those profits now go to Schmidt Island Development. And so we were able to fund this without any public money from the city, the private developments I just described. These, based upon the cash flow that we generate at the casino, we were able to save a bit of that money, go get a 30-year loan, and then make these improvements. But I think it's important to note all of these assets at the end of the lease would revert back to the city of Dubuque. And so we just received an appraisal that says upon completion of all these amenities that we just described, it has a value of roughly $160 million based upon an independent appraisal. So I think it's really important for the citizens to realize that we have a tremendous asset, meaning that's valued at $160 million upon completion, that the city does not have to directly fund that debt, meaning the borrowing capacity of the city is not impacted by this debt that we're issuing. Because we have this unique relationship, we come before this body to make sure that you approve of the debt that we are issuing. But I think it's important to note that this is not an obligation of the city.
Well, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, and the only thing I'll add to that perfect summary, I think, Alex, is the fact that we have had a very full discussion about all these things that are happening on the island that's probably spanned the last 2 years, I would say, right? I mean, we really have talked a lot about this here and publicly, and we've had a lot of good input from a lot of people about this. So I'm really excited that we are at this point. I'm excited to be moving forward. And it is kind of just crossing a T and dotting an I, but it's a big one. I mean, this is definitely moving us in a major direction, and very excited to see a groundbreaking and things starting to happen on Chaplain Schmidt Island.
That's great. I will note that this is very much a ceremonial groundbreaking, indicating the closing of our financing. We'll continue to work with city staff to pull all appropriate permits as we move forward. But there's going to be a lot of, as you can imagine, it's almost a 40-year-old building. Got a lot of HVAC units, a lot of things that we need to clear out of the way before we come and do the auger cast piles to really make sure the foundation for this 7-story structure is intact. But I literally cannot thank your team and staff more, because we literally couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Alex. Thanks for being here and providing a little more explanation and some context for us as we get ready to vote on this. So any further discussion? Okay. Motion here is to receive and file and adopt the resolutions. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Wethel,
Aye.
Resnick,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Roussel,
Aye.
Sprank,
Aye.
Motion passes. Oh, yeah. Motion passes 6-0. Sorry, I was waiting for one more, but I remembered the earlier part of the conversation. Motion passes 6-0. So thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Bye now. Cheers.
Well, with that, Trish, you want to? Well, I'll just take it. Perfect. Okay. So with that, we go on to the last fun evening that we have together talking about budgets. We've been doing this for a while now. We're pretty excited to be at our final evening. Full of energy, ready to ask some good questions, ready to hear some good presentations. But we do have, let's see, so we have 5 full presentations tonight. So the first 3 are actually all housed within the Leisure Services Department. So Marie Ware is going to be providing all 3 of those presentations. So we'll kind of just bounce from one to the next. We'll take a quick breath and then keep on going whenever Marie's ready. But our first is Five Flags Center. So Marie, you can take it away.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Marie Ware, and I'm the Leisure Services Director. This evening, as the Mayor shared, we're going to share information about the 3 facilities that are managed in the Leisure Services Department. Overall, those are managed by myself, along with now the assistance of Jared Charland, who is our Project and Facilities Manager that was hired a little over a year ago. 0.15 of my FTE unit gets charged to each of Five Flags and Grand River Center, meaning part of my time goes to the budgets related to those facilities. And then Jared's time is charged to capital projects related to each of those facilities. In each of those facilities, we have general managers that also run those facilities, and I'll be talking about that as we move along into that. Jared would be here with us tonight. However, he was called up on military duty. He is in the Coast Guard Reserve and was called up for the next 4 months. So he'll be serving our country well during that time. So to begin with, the Five Flags Civic Center. We first off need to thank our Civic Center Commission, and our commission has always been very active with the Civic Center and has had persons that are either newer or persons that have had long-term service, of which Bryce Parks has been a part of the commission for a very long time and always been a real proponent for the Five Flags Civic Center. And Rod Bakke also is on it, and I think he told me the other day he's been a commissioner for 39 years. So probably the longest serving commission member, I would imagine, in the city at this point in time. So we do thank them for their service. As I said, we do have a management agreement that goes with each of these 3 facilities for Five Flags. We have a management agreement with ASM Global, and that contract covers that the city would help pay for operating costs through a benchmark that's set by an agreement. So we have a very specific agreement that outlines which costs are covered by us, and that's created by a benchmark that was set in 2003 when we first started that particular agreement. The building is owned by the city, and we do capital improvement funding, and you'll see that as a part of the presentation this evening, as well as we provide the insurance for the building itself. ASM Global then does the operations on a day-to-day basis and the staffing. The ASM Global leadership team, I think the unique part of this is that Aaron Rainey is the general manager, and each of the persons that you see there are also new very much in the last year or so. So Aaron is here this evening, so if you end up having any questions relative, he can also answer those questions as well. Five Flags Civic Center, along with all of the other facilities that we run, we all try and work to create through all of our areas an equitable community of choice. And when it comes to Five Flags, it really comes down to, as I was reflecting, the importance of a civic center. A civic center is just what it says. It's the center for our civic activity and engagement. And one of the activities that happens there that really, to me, lifts that up is the Toys for Tots that's held there. And if any of you have ever gone to the event, it's a pretty amazing event. It's the highest attended community event that is held at Five Flags. They host it, and it's a well-attended and just an event for people to treasure. And in talking with Bryce Parks, who is also the coordinator of the Dubuque Marine Corps Toys for Tots, he really has nothing but just amazing things to say about the partnership that he has between the police department, the community partners that come together, all of the community that makes donations, and then the facility that helps to host that and make it such a warm and welcoming place for that event. When we look at highlights for the last year, every year is a little bit different at Five Flags because the events that come through every year are different. One of the things in this last year as a highlight is Cody Jenks had the highest attendance performance by a performer with 3,444 guests, which means it was a packed full house that came together that evening. Other events in that kind of an area also were Clint Black, Dylan Scott, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and the $1 Million Quartet. So you can go from country to all the way to your more music that attracts a totally different generation, you might say. Also in highlights of other things, we had Ben Folds, which was a folk singer, illusionist, which is really performing arts sort of a performance, Doc Dogs, Harlem Globetrotters, Dubuque Comic and Toy Show. So you see the variety of events that are really held there. A real key is the family events that are also held there. A lot of different activities that go on are for all different kinds of age groups, and families is definitely an attraction that brings a lot of people to the Five Flags Civic Center. In the last year, Cirque Musica Holiday, Blues Clues, the circus, the Dino Ranch, Peppa Pig, and then you see pictures of Blippi and others. The highest multi-day attendance event the last year was the Battle of the Bluff Rodeo, and that was the highest multi-day. So it was an event that was held over 3 different days. And as you see, many people really enjoy this and share their comments either with the staff of Five Flags, or very much on social media. You see many comments. We always have to make sure that we're helping to maintain the building and the things that help the building run. So there's improvements that are done by ASM Global of being able to do things that really help our guests and the customer convenience and the customer service. And so you see in the last year, if you were at any of the events, they started having grab and go. One of the things that helps to be able to make it so that you can move your food and beverage sales the most is how fast you can help serve people. If there's too long of a line, people will be like, oh, I don't need to get in that line. And so it's one of the things that really makes a big difference. So that was an innovation that they added in the last year. Being able to do better signage, because then that also makes it so that people know where to go. They don't have to ask someone. They can be able to see exactly what are the things they want to know. And as the photo shows, usually the biggest question is, where's the restrooms at? So being able to make sure that people can get to all the places that they need to get to. Being able to have other customer sorts of amenities, and that having a checkout cell phone rent-a-charger station. So a lot of times the activities are longer, and how many of us have left and our phone is just about dead and we didn't know it, we forgot to charge it, whatever. So having those conveniences for customers makes a difference. Being able to add a small air conditioner within a green room area so that it's much more comfortable for those performers that use those spaces. And then just because there's walls and walls and walls, lots of painting and really just that updating that helps it to give that building the loved look that it needs to have. Five Flags has a very active social media, and so you'll see they have a lot of followers in the different areas, as well as their reaches for their posts really go far and wide. If you follow the kind of social media, that's also where you see a lot of people being able to, when an event comes out or when they're marketing that event, people are tagging their friends and they're saying, hey, this is coming up. It's the best way to be able to get a lot of that information out. This social media also makes it so that we have people from a lot of different cities that actually come to the events at the Civic Center. The top cities for purchasing tickets are Dubuque, Galena, Platteville, Piasta, Dyersville, East Dubuque, Monticello, Bellevue, Cuba City, and Epworth. But 67% of the ticket sales are outside of Dubuque County. So those are people coming in, spending money as they come to our facility and enjoying the different events and activities that are scheduled at Five Flags. When we really look at the historic tax support, and each year I've kind of shared this table because there's more years on it, we had to tip it on end, so if you were comparing, it looks different than the last year's. And one of the things that we did this year was to be able to look at it and say, what are the recurring costs and the non-recurring costs? So non-recurring costs are things like studies, equipment replacement, improvement packages that are approved, grants we might receive, sometimes carryovers because we didn't get certain equipment purchased, so it may look larger in a specific year, like in FY23. We didn't get a lot of the purchases done in 22, so we moved and carried over, and the expenses actually happened in 23. So you'll see that there's generally a line that moves up as the expenses go up for the facility. One of the things that is a part of our agreement with ASM Global is to be able to set a benchmark. So we set a budget and an amount of money that the city would provide to be able to have the operations of Five Flags Civic Center. And in their agreement, if they beat the benchmark, meaning they come in under on all the expenses, or revenue over expenses, they came in under, then what happens is that we share that 50-50. And so what you see here is those little triangles that are above the line. That means they beat the benchmark. That was good for us, and it was good for them. So it's that idea of the private sector managing this facility and being able to perform well financially. The 2 years that went below, one of those years was the polar vortex, and the other one was COVID. So throughout the time that they have been managing with us, and this only goes back as far as '08, but ever since they took over, those are the only 2 years that they did not make the benchmark. So when we talk about future initiatives, one of the things we'll be doing is doing an RFP for management services for Five Flags. We have been with them 20 years, and so we'll be in 25 being able to put out an RFP for services. That means that ASM Global and anyone else can compete just like we did with Grand River Center. At Grand River Center, we were at about 20 years. When we also did that RFP for services, and then that ended up in a different management company than before. With this one, you put it out, and we'll see what happens with that. Also in the future here, we will have ARPA projects, Rescue Plan Act projects that must be committed by the end of this year, so we're prioritizing those first. And then we have some replacement equipment purchases that we'll be doing. So those are some major initiatives that we'll be moving forward with Five Flags. Five Flags is better off financially for them going out and helping to find sponsors and partners that help with either specific events and activities, and or if you're at Five Flags, you might see the advertising sponsorship. It might be for a specific event. And so you see on the screen here a number of those partners that are a part of the Five Flags Civic Center. Five Flags has an overall cost to the homeowner, the average property tax cost of $22 a year. And when it comes to capital projects, the capital project that's a part of the budget that is proposed to you, currently in FY24, we have $600,000, and that's for the planning of the $24 million project that you approved and moved funding to be able to do improvements upon the center. So in late June of '25, after a start of either the current management company or a new management company, we will put out an RFP in order to be able to begin these processes. And the reason for that timing is you want to make sure that the management company that you're working with is going to be the one that is a part of the process of what are the types of projects that are involved within this particular study. So when we're lining things up, we'll be doing the management company part first, making those decisions, then right away we'll be doing the next step, which is then starting to work on the building improvements. This also lines up, and the other night I was asked a question and didn't really think about it. This is also lining up because I will be retiring from service, and so we're trying to make it so that that happens at the time where it's like, I'll help take it through the management company part. The new director in the position will take the next part, which will actually be to do the building improvements and things too. So timing-wise, that's how that times out. The performance measures for the Five Flags Civic Center, one of the ones that we look at is being able to increase performing arts programming. And so in FY23, their programming actually increased by 8.2%. And they are able to bring those kinds of things like the symphony, which you see pictured here, as well as they had a show called Illuminate, which was about music and dance. And it was in the dark, and all the people were dressed, as you see, and outlined. And so it was a very unique arts and culture programming event. And so with that, I'll answer any questions after you have public input.
Okay, thank you very much, Marie. We are in a public hearing to discuss the Five Flags Civic Center fiscal year 25 budget. Do we have any public input on this item? I see no one here. Do we have any virtual input?
No.
Thank you, Cory. Anything from the city clerk's office? Thank you, Trish. Okay, back to us then for discussion and questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Strang.
Marie, question about, I get the timing of having to do the management contract first, and then, of course, the project. Is there going to be like some type of, because theoretically, that construction's going to possibly delay them from being successful with their benchmarks. Is there like going to be some leeway in that contract with them for those number of years that they know, well, you know, theoretically you replace all the seats and they don't show up on time and you got all the seats gone and now you can't have a show. So is that going to be brought up at all? Or
I'm sure that as we go through, the way we did the process last time, it's a process of different firms coming in with proposals, doing presentations, us being able to have a lot of question and answer, and then also during the time of the contract negotiation back and forth, all of that would be taken into account during that timing as we did each one of those steps. Good news is, just been through that kind of a process, so have a real good feel for kind of the things that we need to do, talk about, make sure that everybody's clear on and that sort of thing.
And then kind of a follow-up to that too. Do you have concerns that that might deter folks from wanting to put in a bid on that because it's like, oh, I'm going to get involved in a mess here or a long-going construction project?
One can look at it at different ways, but as an overall, at least in our current management company, when I've had conversation with them, they're really excited about it because it's the opportunity for them to bring their expertise to us about here's physical things people have done in other buildings that actually help your revenue streams, whether it's the way concession stands are run or whether it's how fast people can move through different places, making sure, like as an example, if the grab and go wasn't done yet, making sure there's spaces for it and the electric for it and all those kinds of things. So they would bring their expertise to that. And most of the national companies actually have arms. They have actual departments that kind of work with the communities that do this in order to be able to bring that expertise. So they have people at their corporate level that come and they're a part of your process of figuring out what are the right things to do and what are the things that will gain you the best revenues to help your bottom dollar, as well as the understanding of what, we'll have what we know from all of our surveys and all the things that we did, but they'll have what they know from all those other places that they are also placed at.
Thank you. So it sounds very beneficial. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Others? Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So you mentioned the $600,000 planning grant, or it's planning to set aside. And you mentioned that we'd be using that for the Civic Center. Is that part of the $600,000 going to be used at all to plan any theater renovation at all? You mentioned the bathrooms in the Civic Center, and guess what we always hear about at the Five Flags in the theater,
Right.
bathrooms. So why don't you explain what, if you would, what the theater is, how the theater is going to benefit as well?
Sure. When we did the studies that we performed before, and when we also did all the surveying, we did it for the entire building facility, so the arena, as well as the rooms, as well as the theater itself. So we have all of that input that is a part of it, and then when we did the studies, we have what the consultants already kind of pulled out and said, could do this, this, this. They had some general ideas on some costs that were a part of those for renovations of areas. They did those for both the arena as well as the theater. And so what it will become is a prioritization of looking at it and saying, what are because 24 million is a lot of money, but everyone's going to be surprised how fast that goes. One's going to have to be able to look at that and figure out what are the things that end up being in there. but it's very logical that there are some things in the theater that have to get done, and I know that. One of the things that we had been talking about is the theater carpeting. So the theater carpeting is getting older, so older carpeting starts to ripple up just a little bit. It's not bad, but we know it's basically, that means it's more at an end of life. So there are things like that that would be improvements that will very likely be a part of the project.
Great. And so the commission, of course, will be part of that and other stakeholders, right?
Yes.
The symphony and the backbone of the users of that, they'll all be involved.
Yeah. What we would do, or at least that my intention would be to, look at it and say, okay, we had the people involved, we had the Civic Center Commission involved, we also involved, when we did everything before, we did the symphony and the other user groups that are a part of the facility, and being able to have those conversations once again, not to redo the study, but more like, hey, because some of it's going to come down to, I liken it to when we did Comiskey. You have a whole bunch of ideas, and a lot of people like having their different projects that they think are important, but then we had to say, but look, there's only so much money, so if you had to put your money on something, what are the project or projects that you believe are the most important to this project? And I think that this project will come down to that as well, where you'll have this conversation amongst all the different user groups, as well as the particular management company and everyone, and bring that all together to be able to select those things. And you'll also be a part of that as well.
Great. And finally, the $600,000 and then the construction over 5 years or so, obviously there'll be sequencing involved, and that's going to also be part of that plan as well.
That's correct. And even just in the early days when we were doing the study, just thinking about it's like, does one shut the whole place down, or do you go, well, we can work in the theater right now, so then we can keep the arena going and that sort of thing, and maybe we can do some flipping around to do this and that. There's times when the facility isn't used as much, so it might be that schools do this a lot. We're closed during the summer, so do these projects during the summer. Well, the lower time at Five Flags, there's still events and activities, but the lower time is the summer. So it might be that certain projects are picked out and said, poop, we'll do that during that time when it's usually darker, so that then the interruptions are less.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay. Marie, there's one thing you said that I really disagree with. I heard something about your retirement. We're gonna be able to vote on that, right? Is that something we can vote on?
You can sure try.
No, that's wonderful news for you. We can vote, but you're not gonna care. Yeah, that's perfect. So I'm loving everything I'm hearing here. I appreciate the update. I think something that people are most curious about is that construction timeline, because we've been talking about that for years, and it's been a little quiet, but we have a plan. It's definitely there. Aaron, you came all this way. I got to ask you at least one question. Would you mind if I ask you one? All right, if you wouldn't mind. From the look of the graph that we're looking at here, you guys performed really well this year. Can you give us some insight into what happened there? I mean, it was a really good year for ASM and Five Flags.
We did in 23. We had a lot of shows at the end of the year that we got in last minute as well. Mm-hmm. As you know, we compete with Quad Cities, Cedar Rapids, Rockford, Madison, and now we got the new Extreme Arena that's right next to us, and Coralville as well. Mm-hmm. So those are all competitors that are bigger, newer, nicer arenas. So at the end of 23, we got lucky. We got a few shows that normally we wouldn't get. Cody Jinks was also in 23, so that revenue helped. I brought in Hawkers for that show for the last couple of shows of 23, which was able to get our food and beverage up as well. The grab and go wasn't fully implemented at that point, and you can't physically get enough bodies in there, and you can't get enough people through concessions fast enough. So literally brought hawkers in like you'd have at a baseball game, and they got our revenue. So that helps. So things like that, just making adjustments there, and obviously keeping an eye on cost. So we had some staffing changes, so those costs kind of came down as well because we had some vacancies for a while as well that helped keep the bottom line lower, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I want to say congratulations because it's great. I mean, that's really good news. I mean, the trend line is definitely going in the right direction here. So even though there are some things, it sounds like there's a little bit of luck that happens.
Yeah.
There's always a little bit of luck in this business, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But there are some definite processes that you put in place and some other things that are really useful that have made some major improvements. So thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
It was good. And thanks for being here tonight. I thought I'd at least ask you one question since you're here, so. All right. Thank you. Well, do we have anything else for Five Flags Civic Center? All right. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. With that, we will move on then to our second budget presentation of the night, which is for the Grand River Center. And as Marie said, she is ready right away.
Yep.
So go for it.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Marie Ware, and I'm the Leisure Services Director. And this is the presentation for Grand River Center. As with the other facilities, we do have an agreement that is what we use to be able to run this facility. The City of Dubuque, in the management agreement, is responsible for the operating loss, management fees, and incentive fees. What that means is that there's revenues and expenses, and so whatever the difference is, that's the operating loss, but that is the budget that they bring to us. So each year they bring that budget to tell us what that would be, and of course their goals are to be able to reduce that in the same way. The building is owned by the city, so we do the capital improvement funding for the facility, and we also pay the building insurance. And then the day-to-day operations and the staffing are OVG 360. So since we had the new management agreement, that means that we have almost a new leadership team. So Ryan Boniface was hired as the new general manager and came to us from another state. So we're glad to have him and his family with us. And then he is joined tonight by also the rest of his team. So you can see them pictured on the slide, but they're also right here behind me supporting him for the evening. And I would give a special call out to Jamie because Jamie, their Director of Operations, was also with the facility from the beginning. And so he carried on and is a part of the team now. This is a great team. They've really come in and they're energized, and even energized enough that OVG 360 is a large organization. And two of their staff members have already been recognized for their efforts and high level of work that they've put in at Grand River Center. And that's recognized so each of the different facilities can put in their nominations for staff members relative to their achievements in their particular areas. And so Rachel was one of those, their Director of Sales and Marketing, that OVG as an overall company chose her as one of the people to recognize across the entire company for the efforts that she's been putting in the sales and marketing area. So in the new management agreement, it was executed on March 31st, so that's a highlight of the last year. And it's a 5-year term and then a 5-year renewal term as an option. We do have qualitative incentives that are a part of the this process. The benchmarking that we use with Five Flags is now something that we go away from because it has to do with your bonding and whether you can have tax-free bonds or taxable bonds. So it's better for us not to have an arrangement like that anymore. So we've gone to qualitative incentives. Those relate to, we have 5 of those within the contract with them. Customer service surveys, so one of the goals that we wanted to do was to increase the customer service and responsiveness to that. Stakeholder and tenant relationships, repairs and maintenance to the facility, community involvement, as well as economic impact and focused sales and marketing. And one of the areas that we talk about is the hotel stays and trying to boost those overnight hotel stays as well. In the agreement, OVG provided $300,000 in a capital contribution, and so that sits within the operating budget there to be able to be used for either capital and or events marketing. In other words, sometimes in order to get a conference or a convention, you have to have a little bit of funding to be able to say, hey, we'll help offset for you to be able to come to our facility. So it is to be able to help them with that. And then the repairs and maintenance greater than $5,000 would be a part of our expenses related to that. One of the first things that they did and that we did is in October of '23, it was our 20th anniversary of Grand River Center being open, which, my, how time flies. And they did a community celebration throughout the center. It was a really great event in that they had activities throughout the entire Grand River Center, invited kids and families to be able to move through and have stations. They had community organizations that were there, being able to share about them. They had performers there, being able to have different shows during the time that they were there. And then they had this scavenger hunt where the kids could move around to the different rooms of the facilities, get a stamp and or a sign off, and then they could come back and they could get a candy bar and a book. In order to be able to enjoy the facility. So it was a great event and really was a great way to have everybody involved from the community. They did have a VIP and ribbon cutting event, so they invited people to be able to come and enjoy the facility as well. And really, it was one of the first introductions to the amazing talents of Executive Chef and the culinary team, really elevating the food that is served at Grand River Center. And really, that has made a huge, huge difference in the facility. With Grand River Center, there were quite a number of upgrades that were done indoors and outdoors. Equipment replacement and upgrading, being able to get some new serving tables that are used in the facility. The pipe and drape that you see like at conferences and things, we had the maroon that was a part of the facility. That was kind of a tired color for us, and so they've gone to the all black, some new seating so that when you're in that conference area of the exhibit hall, that was there. A tremendous amount of cleaning, particularly the cleaning of the carpets and stuff. So what you'll see there is an area that they were prepped and then had cleaned the carpets. One comment came from one customer that remarked that they really liked the new carpet in the exhibit hall. It was just deep cleaned. And so it's pretty amazing what a little elbow grease can do, and there was a lot of elbow grease that they really did. We had to replace the boilers. Those are what would heat the facility because all of those had aged out and or were in disrepair. Additionally, there's a whole lot of things that were back of house, and for a lot of the residents and the people that visit the Grand River Center, what does that really matter? Having a really nice break room for your staff to be able to go to is a real important. The back of house walls all got fixed up and painted, and so when you're back in the area, you can tell that everybody cares. And sometimes it's as simple as the safety gate that was all rusted is now painted yellow, and it really shows that it's a safety gate. Or that when you open up in order to plug in your exhibit booth, that it doesn't have all the goopy guck in the bottom of it that's been there for a long time. That's a real technical term, by the way. The other thing I think that's really important is the kitchen and the cleanliness. If you look at that middle picture there, what you see is that it shines. And that is so important to a facility that has so much to do with being able to serve beautiful meals to the people that come to the center. When it comes to different events and activities, they have hosted anywhere from an MMA, mixed martial arts, within the exhibit hall, to being able to have a couple local companies, Hirschbach having their best of the best event, and Tyson's being able to have a vendor show where they bring the vendors in and then they bring their staff members in to see all the vendors of the products that they sell. And so really great way to be able to bring our local companies and be able to support those local companies and what they do. Also, from a highlights perspective, the marketing staff really has done a number of things to do sales blitzes. And one of them, and you see in the top right there, was one where it was called Spilling the Tea at Grand River Center. And so they went out and talked to different people within the community and really reintroduced themselves and the center to our community. When it comes to conferences and events, the Chamber Forecast Luncheon, the four-state dairy conference, which is the longest running convention in Dubuque. They had the Dubuque Wedding Expo, Tri-State Emergency Responders through the NICC campus. The TH Media, Her Night Out, Women's Leadership Network Breakfast. You see many, many different kinds of events that happen at the facility. And in addition to some of the election events that are just starting. So some of those are just starting to begin and will continue. When it comes to the Equitable Community of Choice from Grand River Center, one of the things I wanted to highlight this year was the community outreach. Sometimes it's the people doing things for other people. And so this staff with OVG has really been connecting out in the community. So just as an example of the things that they've been doing, a clothing drive that they partnered with United Way, a food drive for Dubuque Food Pantry, holiday cards that they did for Riverview Center, Open Closet Almost Home. They served food at the Teresa Shelter, worked with the Dubuque Humane Society, as well as donated leftover food to the Dubuque Rescue Mission. So a great part of being an equitable community of choice is being out there and being able to help persons in all different kinds of ways. The facility also, when it comes to that equitable community of choice, there are a lot of fundraisers that happen at Grand River Center. So there was the Opening Doors Trivia Night, there's the Mac and Cheese Fest. So you see a lot of those kinds of events and activities. The Brew Fest that also happened, which supports several different nonprofits in the area. And then also the community events like the Honor Flight, being able to either be the place that they depart from or the place they come back to and are welcomed upon returning. So what are they saying? We have this new management company, and what is the community saying? And so what you can see from these quotes here is that they're saying that, you know, not only is the Grand River Center this great place, the staff is kind and knowledgeable. The food was absolutely delicious, and we get many compliments on it. So what you're seeing here is that you know, people are noticing that it is different, the management is different, and the different aspects of customer service are being noticed. So from a future initiatives perspective, they really have been working and are going to continue working on the sales and marketing. Many times conventions and conferences are booked a number of years out. And so they're really working on that. That's not something you see the results of your work right away. That's something that you have to work at. The nice thing about being a part of a larger organization like OVG is that they are out there as a company promoting at things like the Teams Showcase, which is the travel, events, and management and sports group. So they go to that national convention, they're there saying, hey, we're a place, come see us, this is what we have to offer, and that's really important for that. Being able to do other sales blitzes, being able to have a hiring event, all those kinds of things. So it's not just marketing of the facility, it's marketing of this is a great place to work and be a part of a team at. A neat initiative that they're working on is the microgreen growing system and a compost program. So the microgreen growing system is a partnership with Wahlert High School and the Re-Evolution Farms. The students have come up with a proposal or are coming up with a proposal. They're going to install a microgreen system. So if any of you understand microgreens, there's sometimes those cute little green things that come on your plate. And so it's really a great process because it's going to allow them to be able to work with another community group, but also it shows the commitment to sustainability, wellness, and providing a unique atmosphere for those guests that come. They'll be looking at the website. They've already updated what we have, but looking at a new website so that it can be even more focused on the things that are the most important. All of us know those websites we like to visit, and we also know those ones where it's like they're not real friendly. So it's being able to update that. We did have a venue management software, and they're looking at a new venue management software that can really help with their management of the facility. And continued focus on improved guest and customer experience at the facility. So with Grand River Center, the property tax support to the average property owner, or average home owned in the city, so that property tax support is $18.93. And from a capital improvement perspective, recommended in the FY25 budget is some money for roof restoration. What this does is it creates a pool of money to be able to just kind of fix those areas that have issues on the roof currently, but in the 5-year of being able to have the funding to be able to actually work on the roof replacement. As I said, we're at 20 years, so over the next 5 years, that puts it at a time that we'll be looking at the roof replacement. Additionally, being able to begin some renovations and remodel on the public restrooms. So as you're probably aware, we have gone through and we do carpet, we paint, we do all the things. So when you come into Grand River Center, it looks like it's not an old facility, it's not tired. However, if you walk in the bathrooms, they're not bad, but their colors are dated, the way they look is dated, and so what this would do is that there would be 2 separate years. That's why the total is $775,000 or $770,000. Is being able to do part and then another fiscal year do the other part. When it comes to performance measures, one of the things we look at is the maintenance of infrastructure like the Grand River Center is important because those amenities help support our economic growth and development. So one of the ways that we look at, because when different groups will not share the economic impact that you have or necessarily the number of attendees, but because we have our own Growing Sustainable Communities Conference, we know how many attendees come and that they come from a lot of different states in order to be with us. And so when you look at these, what you can see, we compared fiscal year 19 and 20 because those were the most fullest years that we had. And because we've been coming, we canceled that for a couple years, the Sustainable Communities Conference. You'll see that we're working on growing that back again. So that number of attendees is a lot of people coming to us, coming from quite a number of places and states and that sort of thing. And that makes it so that there is that economic impact that even our own conference has. And that's really important. But it also goes to one other piece, is that we talked about it, and I was on the trip with the mayor where it was talked about a lot, that, you know, our airport is a really important thing. And really, you wouldn't necessarily think of it all the time, but it's important to our Grand River Center Conference and Convention Center as well. And so in addition to all the businesses, it also affects our business as well of not having that local airport opened up for us. So good news is that we have a great economic impact. We could have better if we also had that. So with that, I'll step aside for any questions. That's the end of my presentation on Grand River Center.
Okay, thank you, Marie. We are in a public hearing to discuss the Grand River Center budget for fiscal year 25. Do we have any public input on this item? Seeing none here, anything virtually? We do not. Thank you. Anything from the city clerk's office? Thank you, Trish. Back to us then. Questions and discussion. Not all at the same time. Gotta settle down. Anybody? We
Mr.
good?
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
It's true that the place looks better. Oh, my God. It's really palpable when you walk in. We did an event there for Special Olympics that David and I were involved in, and it was pretty easy to walk in the door. Here's what you need. Everybody was helpful and friendly, and not that the previous team hadn't been that, but it was a really exceptional night for us at the Grand River Center, and the joint looks good. The staff is smiling and working hard, and I I'm told the food was pretty good too, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Yes, I was looking through, and is there a number of public events that a lot of great private events, and what are the main public events? I know we have Art on the River is there, and just off the top of your head, what other events might bring our, the public down to
The local public, you mean?
the local public at the Grand River Center?
This is Dump Marie night, isn't it? Let's see. The majority of what happens there are invitation type. You're there for the event, you're there for the conference, you're there for whatever the particular event is. So, I'm going to turn to you.
Yes, ma'am. This past weekend we had.
You'll have to come up to the microphone, please.
You want to introduce yourself, and then you can.
Huge crowd at home,
Yes.
Ryan. So.
Move the microphone up a little bit. Good evening, y'all. Ryan Boniface, General Manager, Grand River Center. So yeah, we do host many events that the outside public could come to. This past weekend, we had a cheer competition with about 1,200 young women that came to cheer. Any political rallies we may host. We have consumer shows such as the Callahan craft show coming up in a couple weeks, and powerlifting, I mean, you name it. We do quite a bit of stuff and are certainly looking to expand on those in the upcoming years.
Great. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And then, Marie, if you could tell me, $770,000 in 2 years has got to be more than paint, right? Are you, for the bathroom renovations, it's got to be more than just painting.
Yes.
Are you going to expand the area or are you going to, all the,
What we
what are
would
you going
look-
to do with that?
Yeah, what we would look at is basically, gutting it and it's a redecoration, so new counters, change of lighting, new mirrors, new partitions, all of that. So essentially, if you think about your own bathroom, we would just gut it kind of down to the studs and then redecorate it up again.
How many bathrooms are there?
We have 4 sets plus a family on the first floor and 2 sets and a family on the second floor. So 8 and 2, so 10 overall.
Great. Do you have help with the design or, the update, the refresh, or who's helping you with that?
So we would hire a architectural firm that would help us to put together a bid RFP for it. So we'd work with staff on the types of things that are important, to be able to include in it, and then we would put together an RFP using architectural services who would help us to figure out what's the right colors and what's the right, like partitions and what's, all the different amenities that would go into that bathroom.
Great. And who helped you with the estimate?
Who helped us with the estimate? We basically compared like different things. Obviously, throughout my department, we do a lot of work in a lot of different places and spaces. So we looked at what those kinds of things cost and came up with a general figure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Wethel.
I had the pleasure of being present as Mayor Pro Tem for the 20th anniversary celebration. And as part of it, I kind of dug into what the River Center was and where it came from. And I just have to say the forethought of our leaders and our community and the city of Dubuque to create this space. We're so fortunate for people with exceptional vision in our city, and this is a great example of it. So thank you for the care you take of it. I am so excited to have OVG staff. I've heard such great things from the community about your responsiveness, the experience itself, of course. The only new feedback I have had from folks lately, I don't know if anyone has gone to the riverfront for a prom, homecoming, or winter social sort of night in which every high schooler is on the Riverwalk. It's so much fun. And I had parents say, when's the city gonna bring out a bar? And I said, oh my gosh, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. But when we talk about community spaces, not only indoors, but outdoors, it's just such a fun time to go down and see our young people on such a beautiful river walk and with your space in the background. So yeah, thought I'd slip it in. Thanks.
Thanks. And I would say that all those events are really great, but then we also have sometimes where some of the individuals that want to get their pictures taken are not very nice to the people that are having a wedding event activity at the Grand River Center that paid.
Oh, goodness.
And so if anyone is listening, when the facility is rented, it is rented for those people, not necessarily for photos.
I didn't realize. I don't recall that there was one when I've been down there, but I suppose I didn't think about that. Yeah, sure.
So there's this fine balancing act of
course.
what can be done. Even though it's a public facility, you also have to be very careful because those are paying clients and customers and things. So normally I wouldn't bring it up, but since you did.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Farber.
And because you brought this up in your improvement package, if I could ask about number 1 of 1, which is additional 10 cameras in the public areas. And I am presuming this is for public safety and just for the general welfare of those that are paying and non-paying in that area. Part of that 700,000, is there an opportunity to scooch that in for payment? Or what are your thoughts about when this can be done? Because it's important to have eyes in the street, if you will.
Sure. And it is important. Anytime you have a public facility, security is always important to all of us. And obviously this council knows how much cameras can really help in that. We completed 3 phases within the Five Flags Civic Center first. So this is kind of us turning to the next facility and being able to do that. If one is to, I call it steal money from another project, that means the other project has to readjust its scope, essentially. So the monies that is there as a part of that particular project, the restrooms project, essentially, if we took some money and did something else with it, we'd be back rebudgeting money again here for it another time. So sometimes it's kind of like, well, it's all the same pocket.
Right, I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, but the related cost, the recurring is only $2,700 versus the cash out, which is $2,730. So it just caught my attention, and since you brought it up, I thought it was appropriate for me to ask you that question. So thank you again, and I have heard and I've actually seen the OVG staff working, as I've been there attending events, and it's just wonderful to be in that ambience. It brings a smile to everybody's face, and congratulations on the 20-year anniversary celebration. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I will generally just echo what has been said here because I think it's going really well. I appreciate the work that the staff is doing. I appreciate you all being here tonight to be able to join us for your first budget hearing. We're generally hearing some really good things and experiencing some really good things when we're there for events. I know we can't list every event like Mr. Resnick was asking, but I was trying to go through my own head, and there's a lot. I mean, there is actually a lot where the public is invited to be able to come for general admission type things, and that's nice that we have that opportunity, along with the ability for people to have wonderful events that are paid events there too. So obviously great work happening. I appreciate the question from Ms. Farber because I had the same one, and I'm glad that we're focused on that safety aspect. Understand that some things just don't get budgeted. We've had that frustration the entire time because that's the way budgets always work. But I do think it's an important thing to keep on the radar for sure because we need to make sure that safety is paramount in situations like this. But I also know that you're doing that. I mean, I trust entirely that that is on your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this year is one of those years, and I think you've brought that up before, is that there's a lot of things on the docket. There's a lot of things not recommended, and those are hard choices to make. Particularly being a department that has a huge number of CIPs, we have a number of them that are on the list of not recommended. And that's just a part of life. And we balance that out in the best way. And if there ever is a time, really actually to try and address your point, if there is a time when we really think that there is something where it's like, no, really this has to, we've got to do this, there's a real push towards that, we will actually do that of, instead of stealing money, I go to the city manager and say, I believe we should take the money from this to be able to do this, and here's why. And so we still as staff have that opportunity, and I think you've probably seen those in your memos from myself and others at times, that we actually do that if we feel like there's a real compelling reason to be able to do something first and outside of this process.
And appreciate that explanation. I think that's an important one to point out. Well, I don't have anything further, so thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for your continuing good work, and looking forward to another great year at the Grand River Center.
Great.
So we will move on to the last Marie-based public hearing here that has to do, this one with ImOn Arena this time. So when you are ready, we are ready.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Marie Ware, and I'm the Leisure Services Director here at the city. So this is a budget presentation for ImOn Arena. Once again, we do have a management agreement for this facility. We have a management contract that is with Schmidt Island Development. We do have the building that's owned by the city. We take care of capital improvement funding as well as the building insurance, just like the other ones. We do take care of the operating loss of the facility. Once again, we have a budget presented to us that says we believe this is what our budget is for revenue and expenses, and then we budget for that operating loss as a part of this, and then we pay a management fee, of which we do that in each of the 3 facilities. And so Schmidt Island Development then, who subs the work to Dubuque Racing Association, so they sub the staffing to them under the agreement, and they are in charge of the day-to-day operations and the staffing of the ImOn Arena. And Mark Planteri is the general manager for the ImOn Arena. So just to back up just a little bit and remind you, so in June of 21, DICE came to us and said, hey, we want to relinquish our leaseholder rights. And so that gave us notice, which then trickled into all kinds of different things. We went to DICE and said, will you interimly manage it so that we can get a plan of action? So for several months they did that. We, in September of that year, took over as a city the operations of that facility in order to be able to make sure that that facility continued operations and did not have a closure, that all of those ICE groups were able to use a facility with nonstop service and being able to continue their activities. We then, in January of 22, went into an interim staffing agreement where we still kept the operations, but they just did the staffing of the facility, and we transitioned our city employees to the DRA. So then in October of 22, we as a city entered into a short-term agreement with Schmidt Island Development for actual management of the facility. And that worked very well, and we said, look, we want to do a long-term agreement, and so in the interim, then we went ahead and worked through so that in January of this year, we actually entered into a long-term management agreement with SID and the city for a 10-year term plus a 5-year extension possibility. Also, another highlight of that time was the renaming of the facility to ImOn Arena, with the naming rights agreement providing $100,000. And that naming rights then, money then ends up going within that budget. It's just like when I talked about Five Flags and the sponsorships and the partners that they have. It's a similar sort of a thing. This one just happened to be relative to naming. And so basically what I call this story is, this is lemons to lemonade. So we kind of had a thing where it's like, oh goodness, it just, here you go. And over the course of this 2.5 years, we've been able to work our way towards being able to have a very good, strong, long-term management agreement with a group that really has done some amazing things at the ImOn Arena. We do a lot of work in the ImOn Arena also with the Equitable Community of Choice. One of the exciting things that we did is in the Leisure Services Department, we had asked several years ago for an improvement package to be able to use the ice arena. It was $10,000. As a department, what we were looking at is, could we do some free skate times that are on us? Could we host some activities? And so we started out with an Easter egg hunt and some other things like that. But what I did this last year is I sat down with the ImOn Arena staff and some of the folks from the DRA and said, all right, let's talk about this. Let me take this $10,000 and let's really try and make this something that can offer skating for all and really activate the arena. So I gave them that challenge and they came back to me and we talked about some of the ideas, and some of them are the ones that that we came up with. But they have $5,600 of that $10,000 that they're using now to be able to work with local schools. And you see up there at the top, it's a free skate, it's an admission and a rental. So as long as you get there, it doesn't cost you anything. And so they have worked with the school district, who has, through their activities director, who then has worked with the principals, said, here are these vouchers, these things that you can give out to students to be able to help them be able to go to the ice arena and be able to skate and enjoy it just as anyone else would. And their target is particularly those students that they know do not have the resources and that they need this little bit of extra help. We also know that there are some of the schools that it's really easy for them to be able to get a bus and be able for the PTO to pay for the kids to go and all this sort of thing. But some of the schools that just isn't something that they can do. So they also have part of this fund that they waive the rental fee and/or the skate rental. And so they figure that for 15 different schools that may not have been able to, they just have to get themselves there, but they may not have been able to do that as a trip, a field trip, and be able to do that. And in order to do all this, we needed to buy some additional skates of certain sizes because of the number of kids that we're trying to be able to bring in, as well as the skating aids, which are like those little things that help them stand up and not fall down and learn how to skate. So we're really excited about this, and the quote that you see here is one of the things that we received back after we started this, and I think it really speaks a lot to how important this program is, and that the rework of this $10,000 is doing the work that we wanted it to. So it says, our students at the Alta Vista campus, which is our alternative high school, recently had the opportunity to receive free skating passes that were donated to our school. As one of their teachers who saw their faces when they received the passes, I can't thank ImOn Arena and the City of Dubuque enough for this donation. Students were so excited, and I got to listen to chatter as they made plans to skate with family and friends. These moments are such a good reminder of what an incredible community we have. Thank you again. Those are the emails I love to get. Additionally, activities that are held at the ImOn Arena are the Winter Olympics, the Special Olympics, and it's a great event, and they really are so proud to be able to help sponsor those activities. And the American Legion's Veterans Day ceremony. The nice thing about that is that, it's always held in November. You never know what the weather's going to be like. The weather's the same all the time inside the arena. So it's a great event and always very well attended by the community as well. Just as a reminder of the different ICE user groups that we have, it's anything from figure skating to high school to youth hockey to senior saints and fossils. So one end to the other. Also have the Dubuque Fighting Saints, who are having an awesome season. So they've had really great crowds and a lot of activity at the arena because of that. And then there's University of Wisconsin-Platteville has a hockey club, as well as Loris. And then with UD, University of Dubuque, started a men's and women's hockey program this year. The inaugural year for them having their leagues at the ImOn Arena. So that was a great addition, and it really is nice to be able to see, just like with Iowa Hawkeyes, of having those younger, older adults, you might say, that kids can look up to and go, look at that, I could be that, especially when you see the women that are photographed here. Also, they've looked at activation of the facility and the special events that really help to introduce people to ImOn Arena or introduce you to skating. So this last year they had the Skate with Santa event, lots of great things, and even the Grinch showed up. Also, they have done things on the island, and that's been the nice thing. So this is about ImOn Arena. So this activity, the Autumn Adventure of the Island, started at the ImOn Arena and ended there. So there were 8 different spots across the island that families went and explored. And when they went to some of the different spots, they were able to see some of the user groups of the particular areas of the island, or even that they were watching for birds or other kinds of things. And so they traversed the island. There was also a trolley that went around. There was an opportunity to get out on the river, which was really nice, and also to the Veterans Memorial as well. So it was a really great event, great community event. It really is that integration of ImOn Arena into the island, and also the island being a part of a place where people want to go. So it is kind of exciting to have that first public hearing tonight that connects really actually with the things we're talking about here as well. So when we talk about future initiatives for ImOn Arena, they'll be doing some concessions improvements. We had a capital improvement project funding for that, and so their executive chef is working on being able to figure out what are some new offerings, different food things, how can we speed up, once again, those lines, what are the kinds of things we can do in those concessions to make sure that it's a really good experience and that they move people through very quickly through the concession stand areas. There's also this integration of the Ice Center into the Chaplain-Schmidt development plan. So as that development plan is being talked about, it's how does the arena and the future of the arena fit into that, and what are some different opportunities and possibilities with that. There's a big project for HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning improvements, and that relates to dehumidification of the facility and that sort of thing. This is important so that we can make the facility so that it's a year-round facility. Without the air conditioning during the summer, that becomes an issue. You can't really have an event in there because that would be too many bodies and too much heat without being able to air condition it. So that's a project that we're actually working on currently and that will go through this next year. And then just increasing that activation on the arena and the island. So you heard Alex talk a little bit this evening about it, but that will continue to be something that we do between all of the different assets, the ImOn Arena, as well as all of our other assets that we have across the island. Your tax support for the average homeowner is $6.33 for the ImOn Arena. And with that, I'll answer any questions after your hearing.
All right. Thank you very much, Marie. We are in a public hearing to discuss the ImOn Arena Fiscal Year 25 budget. Do we have any public input on this item? I see none here. Anyone virtually?
No.
Anything from the city clerk's office? Okay, back to us then. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Farber?
So I have one question based on the packages or the information you provided under supplies and services. And you mentioned that the pay to the other agency went from $350,000 to $382,000, but there was a operating loss of about $282,000. I was just wondering, is that a carryover loss from previous years before the new ice and before the restoration of the facility? This is right below where you talked about the $100,000 management fee that we.
Yeah, okay, so if you can ask your question again to make sure I answer it correctly.
So basically, we paid to other agency increased from $350,000 to 382,673 to be exact, okay. And then this amount represents the $100,000 plus a loss, which is the differential of 282,673. So my question is that from like an arrears from previous years where there was a loss due to the restoration and to the new ice and to the change with DRA?
So
if you could
what
clarify.
So what it relates to is that they, as a management company, we go to them and we say, what do you believe your revenue and your expenses are?
Right.
So the last year was the first full year that they had actually had it. And so they then looked at that and said, okay, energy costs going up, this going up, this going up. And until we are able to do the air conditioning, which will make for other revenue sources, some of those expenses went up. And they were very cautious about being able to actually backcharge that to all the different user groups. So for this particular year, until we get those improvements done, it went up just a little bit. And so it really just relates to, they now know the actuals of what it's like because they ran it for that long.
Understood.
And for them, they also are focused on the same way. We hope we don't need that much, and if we don't, we're not going to use that. So they felt pretty good about the last year. They felt good about those numbers. But in talking with the CFO, then it was like, no, we really think we hope we don't need this a little bit of additional, but if we do, we don't want to, when you're managing 3 different facilities that are doing that, for me, it's like, yeah, we better build it in just as a safety net, because any one of the 3 facilities can have an off year at any particular time.
Sure, and then just the $100,000 from ImOn, of which we're very grateful. Will that help with this specific line item, or is it used somewhere else?
It goes into their overall budget in the revenue side. Okay. So the number that you see really is that difference.
Differential with that as well. Okay, well, thank you. And it's just a great facility. I happened to have been there for the Easter egg hunt. A couple weeks ago, I was there for a Fighting Saint Foundation board meeting, and it was just all of a sudden we were just surrounded by skaters and kids and all kinds of bunnies, et cetera. It was just a lot of fun. So thank you for organizing that.
Yeah, that was a neat event, and they had a huge Easter egg that they had this, for picture taking. Yeah. So there was some really neat photos that came out.
Yeah, I had my picture taken too. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So I noticed that the DRA invested $500,000 in the audio system, and I was wondering if you could give me a report on that, because a lot of times when buildings and event centers are value engineered, one of the things that takes a hit is a quality audio system, and it's a real surprise what a big difference a good audio system makes. So I haven't been there in a little bit. Has there been some good reaction to the new audio system there?
Very much so. The audio system that we all inherited was basically at its end of life. There were different speakers that weren't working. There was a lot of different things that were going on. And you could be in different parts of the arena and not hear above the crowd, or it wasn't clear. We've all been to those events where it's like, wah, 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 wah. You're like, what did they say? And so they brought in a group that they work with, because of course they do lots of concerts and all those things as well, in order to set up a really good system. And the different user groups are very happy with what that can do, and the clarity, and how it comes across during, whether it's a big Saints game where there's thousands of people in there, or whether it's the high school game where you might have 300 to 500 in there.
Yeah, and a substitute for a good sound, a nice bass sound or other, is just more volume. Oh, you can't understand it, let's turn it up higher. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, it's not enjoyable at all. I still can't understand it, and it's hurting my ears.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that, and I'm glad to hear that reaction, because it makes so much difference to, I'm sure, the ambiance of the entire event.
Yeah, and we thank them very much, because frankly, that would have been if they had not stepped up and said, we want to invest in this facility to make sure that this, which is a key component, as you're saying, is good, they would have been coming to us because we're the owner of that building. That's equipment that is up to us to be able to do. And so that's one of the benefits of a partnership, is being able to, kind of work through that situation and figure out what it's going to take to make it right and make it good.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Rousseau?
Thank you. In listening to your presentations, I see that all the facilities, they have a lot of commonalities, and one of them that came up was like concessions. And I know that each of these facilities has its own manager, but I wondered if there's any way to work together to find best practices or cost savings, or do we ever do that, maybe do it at your level?
Each of them, because of the ASM Global is a major corporate company, OVG 360, major corporate company, and so they both have experts that are located within their corporate facilities to be able to help with a number of those things. And even the DRA, especially when you have Alex who came and has that huge experience from casinos in general, it's almost like we have three major experts there. So each of them knows, because there are nuances. There's a nuance between a concert event that you have more than 3,000 people in that's different than having 1,000 people at a convention center for a convention, which is different than an ice hockey show, or ice hockey game or whatever. And so each of them like people that are niche, almost like niche marketers and niche salespeople. I can ask them to see if, but I do know that they talk to each other. So we're a small enough community that they don't necessarily avoid each other. They know each other's names. And even because we own a lot of the things, we help facilitate that, because essentially if we have a lift over here and they don't have a lift like they need, don't go rent one, talk to your neighbor and they'll bring it over. Or if somebody needs more bike rack, which is the thing that holds people back at concerts and things like that, if one of them doesn't have enough, they can call the other one and they get it. So that's a little off topic, but we do work between them, and of course I know what each of them has, and sometimes I'm the one saying, well, if you need that, call them up. And even our Parks Division will borrow things from one of them, because we don't need it all the time, but if they have it, we can go put it on a trailer, go use it, and bring it back again.
That's great. That's exactly what I was getting at, is that they're all experts in their own area, but they're all serving our community. So
Exactly.
Working together, I'm sure, will come out with a better result. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
All right. I don't have any questions. I'm loving what I'm seeing at the arena. I'm loving it, and I love the fact, we just got done talking about the casino and the resort earlier tonight, but the arena is sort of like the engine on the other side of the island right now, kind of where the highway is divided, and there's so much excitement down there. It's been a great addition having college hockey there. The youth hockey is just, I think it's expanded, and I hear really good things about it. And then even beyond that, all the other things you mentioned, the ways in which you can use this place that we've really, we put a lot of money as a community into this, and I think we made a great investment. I think it's a really important investment to keep this going. So thank you for everything you're doing, and really liking it.
Well, and thank you for the support of Mayor and Council. We can't do it without you supporting these facilities. As I know, I know that each of them costs a certain amount to be able to do, but it is what makes our community vibrant.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you. Well, I think that does it for you tonight, Marie. So thank you very much for being with us for these three presentations.
Thank you.
The next one is the Transportation Services Department. So we'll get switched over here and then get started. Hey, I believe our PowerPoint is queued up. I see Ryan ready to roll.
There it is.
I say we go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager Van Milligan, other city staff. I want to start off. I'm Ryan Nucky, the Director of Transportation Services, and I'm here to present on the Jewel Transit and the Parking Division for the City of Dubuque. We do manage two different divisions, but we have one very clear mission statement, and that is to provide transit and parking services in the City of Dubuque for citizens and the visitors, connecting people to employment, services, schools, and recreation. We want to make sure it's safe, accessible, convenient, consistent, and professional. With stating our mission statement, I can't tell you how proud I am of my team. They do a fantastic job on a day-to-day basis. We are an operation where every day we have something going on. It's not Monday through Friday. It's not 9 to 5. It is Sunday through Sunday. We get phone calls all the time. I have a great staff that helps support that. We have a great transit advisory board that we report through. We get a lot of good feedback from them, not only on the transit side, but they like to also weigh in some on other city topics going on also, which is fantastic. I do have a group of my team with us tonight. Russ Steckline's our parking supervisor, Jody Johnson's our transit supervisor, and Joey Leak is our transportation analyst in our division. I can't stress how much our drivers, our service workers, our parking enforcement officers do for us just on a daily basis. So our Transit Advisory Board, Greg Orwell sits as the chair, along with Doris Cerna as the vice chair. Matt Esser is also on this board. They're very good at giving us what are they hearing in the public? What are they hearing as we move forward? Matt is never shy to give us any of his input on what we're doing well and where we can improve. Whether improvements be, hey, this driver never smiled at me the other day, which is fantastic. That's what we want to know to improve our satisfaction with the public. One of the biggest things with working for the City of Dubuque is always looking for that way to create the equitable community of choice. I really appreciate that we added the extra pillar this year. With that, I want to kind of go in some ways that the Jewel and our parking division are working on managing these pillars. As far as resiliency, really excited we did order an electric bus. I know we took our time, but it was a very good thing that we did take our time. One of the two finalists that we were looking at is actually one of the biggest providers to the Midwest. They actually went bankrupt. We already had our choice selected before that, but that was a big factor in what we're looking at when we're purchasing. So we are going to move forward with an electric Gillig 35-foot bus. This bus should do about 225 miles a day, so it would be able to do our routes for us. We're very excited to bring it. Actually, one of them was in town a year and a half ago, which Russ actually drove through Dubuque. Handled very, very well. Sustainability, I've been here. Walker Consulting's been here. We've been talking about our Smart Park Mobility Management Plan. This is in full swing, and our staff is ecstatic. We have an RFP that's out that we should be receiving bids back in about a week. And I'll kind of elaborate that as we get further into this. But the sustainability side, this was just not studying our parking ramps and our on and off street parking. We also looked at the biking. We looked at the walking, the boarding, and the transit side of it also. And some of this will be evaluated as we move into the Transit Persistent Poverty Planning Grant, which I'm going to thank you guys in a little bit about that. As far as equity, we have the free commuter routes that started January 9th of 2023. This is in help with the GDDC. They helped support us as we got this up and running. This route is doing exactly what we hoped it would do. It is allowing people to get to employment early in the morning to secure that job, and with that, they're able to get to that job on a monthly basis. And then what we're seeing is actually we're seeing a rotating group of employees that ride this bus. So somebody might get on this bus for about a month or two, get through employment, get enough cash saved up to purchase a vehicle or find a different ride share to get to work. That's what we're looking for, is how do we get people from their homes to employment to better themselves. Transparency, the Jewel strives to be transparent, not only to its customers, but the taxpayers. We're very open on what we can do and what we can't do. We do receive a large portion, which you guys will see in the budget tonight, of funding from the FTA. And the FTA has a lot of requirements that Jody Johnson has to follow. And sometimes we do have to tell people, no, we can't do that service just because of FTA requirements. We have other city staff that say, well, we just need a bus for an hour. I'm sorry, I can't do that for you. We do what we can, we reach out when we can, but there are some requirements we have to follow. Compassion side, I can't say Prescott School has been a very exciting time for us. If you guys ever need a blast of energy, hop on the Green Line. We're at about 3:15. About 3:15, and you'll see an exciting ride. We pick up anywhere from 35 to 50 students from that school, and they get on the route, and away they go. And the driver will never fall asleep on that route, ever. It's very exciting, a lot of students, but we've come up with different ways to accommodate this. Our driver came up with a solution for us. She was very nice and said, hey, we can't have them on the bus that long. They are very energetic. We need to get them on the bus and to where they need to go. So the driver reached out to Jody, and we figured out a new solution for it. So now I'm actually getting feedback from the public saying that, hey, we're excited about this. We're excited that these kids are getting on the bus. They're getting on, they're sitting down, and they're getting off the bus in a timely manner. So I can't say enough for Prescott School, the principal down there, and what Jody Johnson's done with that. As far as highlights for this year, I know Marie Ware kind of touched on the honor flight, but I know some of you guys have participated with the honor flight. I want their energy. Somehow I need to get that, because we'll pick them up at the Grand River Center at 5 a.m. in the morning. We take them out to the airport. They get on a plane. They go to D.C. They spend a whole day down there. They fly back, and we pick them up about 9:30 at night, and they are still going. They're still energetic. They're still just excited to be there. I can't stress how much we enjoy doing that for them. We also support the Back to School. We're also participating in the Back to School Bash, which I think is a fantastic thing that Anderson's team and the school systems put on. We participate in City Life and any city job event that we can participate in. Two things I want to thank City Council for was last year in our budget, I had an improvement package for a grant writer, and that grant writer, we had a budget of $35,000. With that, we were able to secure 2 grants this year. One was the Areas of Persistent Poverty grant, which this grant is going to be a grant we're going to use to study the jewel. So we're going to have a consultant come in. We're going to go through our whole process, what we can do differently. That's a $200,000 grant. And then the next grant we were awarded is funds for 2 additional electric buses, which that came out to about $2.4 million. So with the $35,000 that you guys approved, we were able to capture about $2.6 million in federal funds, which we're very excited to have and also to use. Another thing that we're still working on, and Russ Deckline is a huge part of this, Steve Sampson-Brown, I can't thank him enough, is our smart parking mobility management plans in progress. And then, like I said earlier, we are working and still running the commuter route in the morning and afternoon. Future initiatives, we're always looking at what can we do better, and I can't stress that enough. Our team looks at what we're doing today, and sometimes they might hate me for saying it, but I say, how do we do it better? How do we shave off 5 minutes? How do we make it 10 minutes faster? So we're looking right now, we're going to be improving some of our bus stops and our ADA improvements on the Jewel side. We're bringing in this electric bus, and this electric bus is not just, hey, the bus shows up. Now we have to go through the JOTC facility and get an electric charger put in there. So it's not something that we can go plug into the wall. We now have to work with Alliant and how we're going to get a transformer set up. So there's a lot of steps and processes we have to do. But the delivery date for the bus isn't till Christmas of 2025, so we do have a little time to get that put together. As I mentioned earlier, we were awarded the Areas of Persistent Poverty Planning Grant. This grant we're very excited about. It's going to look at what do we do well today, or where do we struggle? Because I'll be honest, we're always looking at where do we struggle and what do we need to do and improve. And that's not only what do we struggle with as far as transit times for people getting on and off the buses. I'm going to use the word food deserts. Are we not supporting areas of town in the correct manner? These are all things we want to look at. And then that's what that study will do for us. We're very excited about it. We're very excited to see what is also out there on the technology front that could better what we do in today's world. And then I know our service techs on the parking side are very excited about our smart parking mobility management plan. We're in the RFP process for the off-street, for the ramp technology. So we're in the stage right now where we're have an RFP out, and it is for ramp technology only. We're not going to mix the on-street and the lot technology with the ramps. One of the main reasons we're doing that is there are not very many vendors that do both. And so instead of we're hoping to get 6 to 10 bids, we might be down to 2 to 3 bids. So we want to make sure that we're opening this up for everybody to bid on, so the city's able to bring in, we'll go through the RFPs, and look at the different options that's out there for the city of Dubuque. If I had my choice right now, I mean, I went to a conference in Chicago, there was 10 different vendors there, and everybody had a core structure that they did, but then they had these little nuances that, well, we can do this and we can do that. So we want to be able to take those and build that into what we want for the next 10 to 15 years. As far as funding from property tax support, this transit side, the homeowner's property tax for transit is $29.03. As far as the parking side, the parking does not receive property tax support, but does receive greater downtown TIF support. So I did break this up into transit and parking. I do like to walk through these separately because they are very different operations. The transit division, again, this is going to be looked at very, very tightly this year on what we can do to improve it. So we have the 3 transfer locations, the 15 bus shelters, over 280 bus stops. And these bus stops, I want to say, we do move them around a little bit. Reason being is when they tear down overpasses, I can't get a bus across it anymore. So we need to find a different way around. So we do try to get it out to the public when we're making those changes. And then we do run 13 light-duty buses and the 17 heavy-duty buses. I like to show this graph. We've made great strides over the last couple of years to make this work better for us. The FTA has a usable life for buses, and this is my pitch for Public Works because they do such a great job for us. So all of the green buses are within the useful life of the FTA, and all of the orange buses are outside of the useful life. There is nothing wrong with those buses. We have them, they're safe, they're reliable, they'll work for us. It's just that they, to the FTA's eyes, are outside of the useful life of what that unit should be doing. Ariel and Tom Cool's team down there does an amazing job keeping these up and running. And with your support and financial support, we've been able to kind of right-size this ship over the last couple of years. We do partner with a lot of different divisions across the city. We talk with the Dubuque schools a lot about what they're seeing. What they're telling me this year is their enrollment's up, which is a great thing because we're definitely seeing that on the buses. We're seeing full buses with students on it. Students ride for free, so we definitely promote that to the schools to make sure that they know that. The other big one that I like to highlight, and we kind of push with the drivers, is our Tri-State Coalition Against Human Trafficking and Slavery. You'll see in a slide coming up, we have about 7,000 people a week on our buses, which is fantastic, but I want to make sure that our drivers, if they see something, they say something. Some of them have come up to me and said, well, and I'm like, no, if you see it, say it, we'll figure it out. It's better to be safe than sorry in a lot of events. And they've brought that up to us before. Thank gosh, it was no issues, but they're out there, they're watching what's going on to make sure that we're keeping our riders safe as they're utilizing our service. So as far as the transit revenue source, you'll notice that between state assistance and federal assistance, that's about 75% of our funding. And that's why, like I said before, we have such a small part in the property tax that we need as for support. As far as our expenses, a lot of it's employee related just because we do run nonstop. We do take Sundays off, which that'll be reviewed as we go forward with the study. But we're running 6 days a week. We run from 4 in the morning till about 7:30 at night. So we do have buses out there a lot, and that goes through a lot of fuel and a lot of employee time. As far as ridership, we're very excited to see that it's still ticking in the correct direction, which is fantastic. We started in about 319,000 in calendar year 21, and right now we're at 355,000 through 23, which is fantastic. Our fixed route is up about 6,000 rides from last year, but I really want to focus in on our paratransit. Our paratransit kind of spiked last year at 46,844 riders. We're down about 2,000, a little over 2,000 riders this year. But with the supported do-ride, you'll notice that their numbers went from 6,800 up to 9,000 rides, which is a great increase for us. So across the board, as far as transporting people that need that support, we're still there to do that. And now to the parking world, which, again, we are ecstatic. We have an RFP out. We had a pre-bid meeting with, I think there was about 48 people in the room, which was unheard of for a city of Dubuque. Walker Consulting's never seen that. So we're very excited with the opportunity, and we're hopeful that we receive a lot of RFPs coming back. With the parking division, we do manage the 7 parking ramps, the 19 surface lots, around 2,000 meters, and we do have the 8 residential parking districts. As far as our meter districts, it is a pretty big stretch of the downtown. This is something that we've worked with Walker on do we need this big of area? Do we not need this big of area? So that was something that will come in their smart parking plan, hopefully early spring as we move a little further. As far as what we do, our parking enforcement officers, I want to stress this, they're not there to write tickets. They're there to keep people honest. We want people to be utilizing the service correctly. We want people to be using the ramps correctly. And as we flow through later in this, I have a couple other things I want to emphasize. But you'll notice that they wrote 19,759 tickets. Usually we're right around that 20,000 number across the board, which is pretty consistent over the last couple of years. We do give out the courtesy tickets. You'll notice that 5,014 tickets were courtesy tickets, so they're the one-time tickets if you're a first-time offender. I get a lot of emails on those from people saying, hey, thanks for the free ticket. And I'm like, well, great, don't get it again. We'll have to charge you. But across that, we do have some times where we have issues with our technology. So we do have an adjudication process. So as people will reach out and say, hey, I shouldn't have received this ticket, I just go on and tell them, go on the city website. We have an easy process. Russ Steckline loves to review them. And then you'll notice that appeals approved. We approved 196 last year. So we're always open to, if we made a mistake, we want to correct it. As far as the revenue sources, you'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, we don't receive a lot of property tax, but the TIF financing is about 48%. Rent fees are 26% of what we bring in, and then meters and meter fees also supply a larger portion of what we do. As far as our expenses, supplies and services. Everything's getting more expensive to do. A yard of concrete does not cost $100 anymore. It is through the roof expensive. So as we move forward, we're finding that our services just keep going up, which that's across the world. Our employee expenses, again, we are 24/7 in our parking division. They always have to be, we have people on call all the time. So you'll notice that we do have a large portion there. As far as FY25 recommend improvements, this is something that we've been talking about for the past year with Walker. The first improvement that we're looking at is ramp and lot permit rates for FY25. I'll have slides after this to kind of go through and show you what I'm talking about with this. But we're looking at upgrading the permit rates for the ramps in certain lots. And then our second improvement package would be the new parking violation rates for FY25. So as I mentioned, our ramps and lots, we haven't adjusted the permit price for those in quite some time. The ramps, I believe, has been 2015. And with this graph, you'll see that we are not adjusting all of the ramps. We are adjusting Locust Street, Iowa Street, and the intermodal ramp. Those ramps are plumb full. So I have no vacancy in those ramps, and I have a waiting list of 50 people per each ramp, which is a great thing, especially when we get new technology and we can look at possibly overselling ramps. But the Fifth Street, Five Flags, and Central ramps, they stayed the exact same. And in the service parking lot area, we did increase some lots, only $3 a month, and other lots, I believe, went up about $8 a month across the board. As far as notification, anybody that holds a permit in our ramps and lots currently have been notified about this potential change. And then some phone calls have been made, emails have been sent. We have not received a lot of information back. I'm hoping if you guys did, you will communicate that to me tonight. But at the current time, we have not received many inquiries at all about this. And the other improvement package that we're looking at changing is not all, but there are certain violations that we want to increase. We did not go through the roof on these. You'll notice that some of these only went at $5 across the board. Courtesy violations stayed at 0, which is a good thing. But then there are some on here that we did double them because they are an offense that could potentially lead to another problem. So we want to make sure that people are understanding why you can't utilize or park in certain areas. As far as capital improvements, on the transit division, so we do have vehicle replacement. As I mentioned earlier, we are getting closer to all green buses and not as many orange buses, but with that would be $949,000. And then bus stop improvements. Again, we're always looking at how do we improve what we do for our ADA riders along with just normal riders with bus shelters. The parking division. As far as the Port of Dubuque lot resurfacing, this is a 2-year project. We're currently in the first year, but next year we're looking at $225,000 to resurface that. Our smart parking system, again, this is a multi-year setup, but $1,957,000 for that. Again, it'll be a 2-phase project. We're in first phase now with the ramps, and then we'll roll into the on-street and the lots next. Municipal parking lot maintenance, $53,000. This is for us to just manage the landscaping, manage the striping in the lots, clean up any issues in the lots, fix curbs that are in the lots. It's just that basic maintenance. Across the board, we do manage 19 lots, so $53,000 over 19, there's not a lot of cash to go around sometimes. Port of Dubuque ramp, major maintenance, $86,282. And the parking ramp major maintenance, I want to talk about this for a second. 2 years ago, we had Desmond Consulting come to town, and they went through all of our ramps, and they gave us a PM process, a preventative maintenance process. And with that, Steve Sampson Brown has done a great job at putting together, for the next couple of years, this is what we need to look at spending and investing in our ramps, or the deterioration is going to continue. And if that continues, then it's going to cost more as we get further down the line. So we are asking for $6,053,000. A vast portion of this will be the Iowa Street ramp. We need to definitely look at the roof on that ramp. Still safe to use. We have engineers that are monitoring that ramp, but we do need to look at fixing that ramp and definitely looking at addressing the roof. As far as performance measures, I was at a school event for City Life, and I was told that I was getting old. And I laughed, and I said, "What do you mean I'm getting old?" And they said, "We don't use Facebook anymore." I'm like, "Well, what do you use?" So we're going to look at different avenues to connect more with the younger generations. Facebook's not the thing anymore, I'm being told. We also do Notify Me subscribers so people can follow along with us. As far as we want to make sure that our bus stops are where our bus stops need to be, along with not only the residents that use our service, but also with the schools. And then next year, we're projecting it. We're hoping to hit it. We're hoping to hit about 378,000 rides throughout the Jewel. Another thing on the Jewel side is we want to make sure we're partnering with a bunch of with nonprofits to make sure that they're getting the bus passes that they need to support their clients. Along with that, ADA support, also buses with ramps. About a month ago, we had a vendor come to town. It was Arbach Buses. Fantastic bus. They have a walk-up ramp facility. We're still trying to figure out if it will fit Dubuque, because Dubuque is such a specialized spot with hills and corners, and we have hot and cold. So we are consistently and constantly looking for different options for equipment to help support what we do on our paratransit. In the parking division, I want to stress this. I mentioned earlier that some of our rates we're hoping that we could potentially increase. I wish we could increase the disabled parking spaces citations, but we can't. That's a state regulation. So we're stuck with that. But our team is adamant about making sure that people are properly using the proper signage when they're there. Either their plates show that they have a handicap placard or they actually have a hang tag inside. We do a very good job of making sure that if it's not there, then we're letting the individual know, hey, this is a ticket. I'm sorry. You can't be in this spot. There might be somebody that has a mobility issue that needs to use these facilities. One thing that we look at is frequency of service, reliability of service, and efficiency of service. Just because I'm the director, just because they're supervisors, doesn't mean that we're not out in the field, we're not seeing what's going on. Russ Stuckline will go drive buses as needed. Jody Johnson will ride the buses with students as needed. We're out in the public making sure that not only the public's seeing us, but our team is seeing us, that we're participating and that we see what they also have going on. I always put in a thank you slide. I can't say thanks enough to the police and fire department. Right now, the police department's putting together a de-escalation training that we're going to put to all of our drivers and all of our brand new drivers so they know how to handle certain situations. Public Works not only for fixing our buses and keeping them on the road, but also clearing the streets. I mean, we had, 20 inches of snow in February in 1 week, and our buses were still able to go up and down the roads. We had to modify a little bit, but the roads are still open. I can't stress enough how much support you guys have given us with allowing us for applying grants and working through the Smart Park and Mobility Management Plan. I know Jenny and Laura are behind me. I know Laura's excited for me to be done tonight so that I don't have so many questions. And Robin's not here, I don't see, but Robin's got to be, I bet she's put her out of the office on for me because I was constantly, Robin, what's this number for? Robin, where's this number? It's great teamwork on that. We want to make sure that it's done correctly and properly. So I can't thank the finance team enough. And with that, I will take any questions after public input.
All right, thank you so much, Ryan. We are in a public hearing to discuss the Transportation Services Fiscal Year 25 budget. Do we have any public input on this one? Seeing no public input. You want to? Come on up. Yeah, please. Absolutely. This is your chance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Try to be appropriate. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Greg Orwell, I'm Executive Director, Do Ride. We just celebrated our 15th birthday, and I'm in my 11th year of being the Executive Director. I couldn't be prouder of what we're doing and the growth we're seeing, and more being relevant to more people. I read a study just last week. AARP had commissioned a study just about the health and welfare of seniors in general. And their finding was senior loneliness is as devastating to health as smoking cigarettes. And one of the things that we provide is just that connectivity with the community. We get people to doctor appointments, we get people to jobs, we get people to shopping, we allow folks to stay independent, but as much as anything, we allow folks to be connected with other folks. And that's something that's really important for not only what drives our volunteers, but what drives our mission as we relate to how we operate and how we work with people. And that's something that we're very, very proud of. Our highest number of rides in a given year, 3 years we hit just at 12,000 rides. And then COVID, we went down to about 1,800. And I'm happy to report that the trend for April, this will be the first time since COVID that we're going to do over 1,000 rides again in this month. And that's something we're really excited about. Another part of the program that's growing is our income support program. We discovered just really by accident several years ago, one of our members, riders members that we refer to them as, ended up in the hospital because she could not afford even the $4 we were charging to get her Coumadin levels tested. And that day we said, that's not going to happen again. So anybody that has access to any, or receives any kind of public assistance, whether it be rent or heat or food or most anything else, we're very liberal on what we consider a qualifier. No questions asked, they're in our income support program. That then allows, instead of $6 per ride, $3. And any medical ride, and we're very generous about what we consider medical, is absolutely free. This year, we're going to do almost $20,000 worth of rides, either discounted or free. And of the approximately 9,000 rides we expect to do this year, about 3,000 of them are going to be impacted with the income support program. So statistically, 18% of those 65 and older live at or below the federal poverty line. 22% of our members are in our income support program. And we continue to have more people calling on that all the time. And that's something we're very, very proud of. I would like to mention this is the third year of United Way funding for Do Ride, specifically to help us offset the cost of this program. And they provide about half of what the expense is for that. So we're going to continue on all those cylinders. We're at 286 members and 137 active volunteers. We're always looking for more of each. So with that, any questions you might have of me, I'd be happy to handle, but I wanted to thank you. Somebody mentioned earlier about the vision that came from this room and prior council rooms. The first year of Do Ride, City Council said, we're going to pay for 100% of it to get it started. We still are one of the very few programs of this ilk anywhere in the country. Thanks to you and thanks to the volunteers. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much, Greg, for your comments. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we have questions, we'll let you know. But we'll do finish public input first, and then we'll come back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you. Do we have any other public input here? How about virtually? No. Thank you, Corey.
Nope.
Thank you, Trish. All right. Questions and discussion. Yeah, Ms. Rousseau.
Thank you. Well, I love to hear your focus on customer service and how you really work to serve the people in our community. And I noticed that your annual ridership is just really impressive at 355,000, but you say you want to get to 378,000. And I wondered two things. One, how are you going to get there? And two, who is the target audience? Who are you trying? Who are we missing that you want to add to that number?
One of the things that we're looking at as we move forward is, when I came to the city, we want to get kids to school. So we set up, we established it, we set it up that school students ride for free. And that's not K through 12, that's K through any college education, which that is definitely helping out what we're seeing as far as riderships. Another thing we're looking at is with the Smart Parking Mobility Management Plan, there were some comments in there on the transit side, as in buses. We need to look at our different hours that we can operate. We need to look at different routes that we need to operate. And these are things that we need to look at internally, because right now we have situations where if somebody wants to go from downtown Dubuque all the way on the far side, they could be riding a bus for 30 to 35 minutes, which to me, that's a long time on a bus. So how do we cut that time? And with that, this study is going to help us out to evaluate what are the different types of routes we need to run. Do we run the right hub? We run a hub and spoke kind of route right now. Is that the right system, or are we supposed to have an express route all the way through town? So as far as where the ridership's going to come from, how are we going to improve what we do for our delivery time for the people at Dubuque? It's the transit time we need to focus on. Pre-COVID, I believe the 2018-19 was about 488,000. So I have a ways to go to get back up to that number, but our goal is to get back to that number. And with that, it is reaching out to the schools, reaching out to the people that want to ride their bikes, that can utilize their bus to get up and down the hill. But how do we speed up our transit line to meet these needs?
Great, thank you.
Mr. Strike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, excuse me, I want to give a lot of praise and thanks for working with Prescott School because that was a big concern when Fulton closed, that a lot of those kids in my neighborhood would have to somehow ride the city bus. So I took it upon myself a few times to ride the bus. I will walk down to Prescott and just ride around with the kids. And it is a fun route to see the chaos. But
excitement, it's not chaos.
Okay, that's what we're...
to sell a driver on chaos. It's easier to say it's really exciting. And
All right, I agree. We won't mix words too much. But I do have a little bit of concern with the 24th Street bus stop. I've had parents reach out to me about that because those kids have to cross Central. And I don't know when you're doing these bus stop remodels, if there's something we can do with that. That would be kind of good, I think, for that, particularly that one, the 24th and Central one. And then another idea I've noticed in other communities, at some of their bus shelters, they actually have USB plug-in ports. So folks that are waiting can charge their phone or something, and they're usually there's a solar panel on the roof. So they're not actually needing to draw power from anything. They're just the sun's doing its thing. So I don't know if you can look into those as well.
So right now we have an RFP out for newer bus shelters, and we're looking at solar lighting in them. But that is definitely an option that we could add to that RFP to take a look at. As far as the 24th Street bus stop, I'm sure Jody Johnson's already writing a note down saying to evaluate that as we move forward to make sure that we can make it as safe as possible.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Ms. Larber.
So wanted to ask you about the passport parking system. I know you didn't mention it, and I know we've had a few hiccups along the way, especially on some of the meters that are no longer capable of being read due to the crossouts and stuff. But could you just kind of share with us and share with those that are listening what that will be continuing on as, or what it is now for part of the mobility study as well?
This is a great question. I wish I would have kind of touched on it earlier when we talked about adjudications. So the passport parking system right now, there is a system delay when somebody goes and uses that system. It's a delay that I can't get rid of at the current time with how this current system's set up. But this is something that we're looking at either modifying with Passport or moving to a different vendor, depending when we move on with the on-street RFP, which we're hoping that RFP will be written early summer so that we can look at making modifications if we need to. The issue that we run into is our street meters are aged, is how I'll call them. And there's not a lot we can do with that. And the technology we have to use that app to when our parking enforcement officers see that, there is a gap. And I would say a majority of the adjudications are from that, where we'll get an email, I paid for it, here's a screenshot, and then that goes through the adjudication process. But that is something we are going to address because we hear about that quite a bit.
Right, so do I.
I first have to get to that RFP to make sure whatever vendor we go with, that we can either upgrade the passport system onto it or put an RFP out for a new mobile online service.
Do you have the data behind how many users we have by chance?
I believe it's 25% of the people use Passport to pay for parking.
Okay. The other question I had for you was, I found that you talked about technology services increasing, and then the addition of 8 body cameras.
So the 8 body
those?
cameras, we have our parking enforcement team that we use them for, which works out very well. Anytime they're having interaction with citizens throughout Dubuque, they're turning them on. Russ and I have had a lot of conversations that it doesn't matter if they're asking where McDonald's is or if it's an issue and you're writing a ticket. We want to make sure that they're getting treated properly because we've had 2 or 3 times over the winter where we did not get treated the best as we should. They're out doing their job as they need to do. And then as far as technology services, we did see an increase because through our contracts, the one contract was written that the first 3 to 5 years of service was built into the contract, and after that threshold, we would pick up the software charges, and that's why you're seeing that increase.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Orwell to thank him for all that you guys are doing at Do Ride. And it seems like it's a celebratory night tonight with anniversaries, and yours is 15 years, so congratulations, and thank you again for all your service. And thank you very much for all of this, and I can't wait to see the new EV bus. We look forward to that. So thank you very much.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So I appreciate your comment on relentless improvement. That's what we need to do. And so thank you for that. So the electric bus that everybody loves. There was a recent study that, now it's gone, but anyway, that cold weather affects these buses. There's a 33% loss in power or distance And have you made plans for all that? And are you alarmed
Yes.
by that? Or is that going to get better in your estimation? Or is it just the nature of the beast of battery-powered buses?
I would say nature of the beast, but that is one thing that we kind of plan for. And when we started looking at electric buses, we made a trip down to Iowa City, and at the current time, though the buses we were looking at, and through Proterra and Gillig and other manufacturers that were out there, it was about a 440 kilowatt bus. And that bus would do about 140, 160 miles a day, which in Dubuque, it'd be right on the limit if it'd actually make it for what we're doing in a given day. But then you throw the cold weather, you throw the hot weather in there also, because you need to plan for both. It wouldn't make Dubuque's weather. We've talked to the manufacturers, and they agree with you that there is going to be a reduction in the mileage that it'll get. The bus that we're purchasing is 788 kilowatts, I believe, give or take a couple. So that's going to do 220 miles a day on average. With that, we can put that on routes in the dead of winter that it'll easily be able to run the full day. We won't have to bring it into charge at all.
Okay, great. So
As far as the heating and cooling, this unit will have an APU system on it to manage that, to help support the batteries.
we got a letter from someone recommending that we have more bus shelters. It's an equitable thing, a comfortable thing. You get more riders. But I know that some people, where there are bus stops, they don't want bus shelters right in front of their house. So you have this difficult. What are the criteria for right now for putting up a bus shelter?
There are a lot of different steps we have to go through. First, we have to start with the FTA and do an environmental study. Am I saying that correct, Jody? Yes, we have to do an environmental study to make sure it's not disturbing any separate grounds. And then from there, we'd have to pour a slab and put the structure up. As far as requirements, we would be working with engineering on any of the easements that we'd be working with. At the current time, I'm replacing older structures that have been up. Any new structures would have to go through the engineering department and to make sure that we had the proper placing and we weren't in any easements.
Okay, thank you. I have just a couple quick questions for Mr. Orwell, please. And nowhere in the budget is really given a narrative of what the Do Ride story is. What is Do Ride? If you would, just tell us what it is, the role of volunteers and the program, so that the citizens might think, hey, I would like to volunteer for that, or I could use their assistance.
Well, thank you. Yeah, just briefly, our membership is available to anybody 65 and older that needs transportation assistance. We work very closely with Jewel, cooperating with, sometimes we can serve folks better, sometimes we refer them there. We also work closely with RTA when it comes to those situations. All of our rides are provided by volunteer drivers who provide or drive their own vehicles. Some are a car, some are SUV, whatever. Just for every person that can't get in an SUV, somebody else can't get into a low car. So we match the vehicle with the needs. The process is basically we need to hear about a ride request by noon the day prior. And then that afternoon, we arrange the volunteers through email, through phone calls, as it were. Then the day before each ride, we call the member and we confirm the ride, the time, where they're going, name of the driver, color of the car. For some of our members, we are their date book. What is my appointment tomorrow? Tomorrow you're going to the doctor, or you're going to the podiatrist, or whatever the case may be. Okay, well, I forgot. Memory challenges abound with some of our members, so we've got to be really thorough with that. The volunteers are offered a mileage reimbursement of a whole 18 cents a mile for gas. Since 2011, not a single nickel has been requested from any volunteer for gas money. So not only is it the time, but it's also the treasure, if you will. So that's the once over. And because we're a small local agency, we can be very creative with solutions we can provide for folks.
And you mentioned a connectedness benefit, and I've seen some of your volunteers, and the volunteers also get that same connectedness benefit, don't they? I mean, it's very important. They see it on the faces of their riders, And so there's a benefit both ways.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of our volunteers are retired, and as we've probably heard, you don't retire from something, you retire to something. And what's going to get you out of bed now that you don't go to work every day? Well, Do-Ride is one option. One lady said, if it weren't for Do-Ride, I was thanking somebody profusely for taking an extra ride. She said, you don't understand. If it weren't for Do-Ride, I would not put clothes on in the morning. So it does cut both ways in terms of who gets what benefit.
All right, TMI right there. So, but thank you very much for your service, and I just know it's a fantastic program, and I hope people can know about it, and the council does. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Ms. Buffalo.
Well, Mr. Orwell, I don't have a question for you, but I just want to tell you as a nurse practitioner, I work in primary care, and I every day have patients that use Do-Ride. And Do-Ride allows our seniors to stay in their homes. It's that simple. There are so many people I have known in our city that would not be able to live in their homes if it wasn't for Do-Ride. So thanks. And thanks to all your volunteers, because I know people come in that use Do-Ride, they respect your volunteers so much. They're so grateful for them. So yeah, thank you very much. I gotta tell you, when you start things off by saying our staff is ecstatic about a parking RFP, that says so much about your department, which is great because I love that you and your staff are so invested in what you do. Your drivers have a hard job. And so I really want to tell you thank you for trying to do what you can to support them. I sense that when I have heard from you before. That's a tough job, but I know that you try and create an environment of support for them. So that's great. I did want to mention, so the average taxpayer homeowner pays 8 cents a day for our transportation services. I feel like that's really good. The question I have is about availability of what we've done before and what we're doing now. So you said 6 days a week, Sundays off from, was it 4 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.?
Our first buses run about 4:45 in the morning.
4:45, I'm
Yes.
sorry. And that is earlier than it used to be,
Correct.
right?
That would be our AM commuter route that starts at that time, to make sure we can get people to the 6 a.m. shifts to start as their daily first shift. And then right around 6:15 every day is when our full service starts to start for our fixed routes. Our paratransit buses are leaving anywhere between 5:15 and 5:30 in the morning to get people to any doctor's appointments or any changes that they have.
And have we always gone till 7:30 p.m. or have we ever gone later?
Yes, we have. So
Okay.
pre-COVID, they did run later. But when COVID happened, there was a lot of businesses and organizations that shut down, and we would see literally nobody on the bus. And what we have been watching is later in the day to see if there is a need for that. But by the time we're getting to the 6:30 to 7 o'clock hour, our ridership has dropped off dramatically. This is something that will be done in the study as far as, do we need to extend all of our routes to like a 9 p.m. or like a 9:30, or do we have to have select routes that we switch to once we hit like a 6 p.m. time that goes to certain parts of town for public enjoyment or restaurants or movies? So that is definitely something that will be done in the study as we move forward.
Great. Well, I would think for those who work in customer service, having a later route for some routes would make sense for transportation to and from work for a lot of our residents. But great. And then have we ever run Sundays?
So when we ran the floral pool study, we did run on a Sunday.
Okay.
It was a route that went around Dubuque and would end up at the pool. I think in the entirety that it ran, we had 411 rides, right around there. And that ran for, I believe, 4 months. So there wasn't a big need for that, but this is something that we'll evaluate as we reach out for public involvement when we do this study.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Ryan, you've got a lot going on. We've seen you a lot lately too. I mean, with the discussion about the parking study and the mobility study, and basically that's the thing that excites me the most. And I think just as excited as you seem to be and the rest of your staff, it's going to be some major changes, I think, potentially, but at least some really good information that we can have to be able to figure out what to do next, along with just the parking RFP. That is a very exciting thing. I think just being able to see those changes that are probably long overdue, and we've known that, but it's really great to be able to move forward with it. I'm really happy with your annual ridership. I'm also happy to hear that you're not even close to being done pushing for more. I didn't realize that the ridership was that different pre-COVID than it is now. So it's interesting trying to find the new normal there.
That's what we're looking for. What is the new normal? Because right now that we still have a hybrid workforce, and we see that not only on the transit side, but we greatly see it in the parking side where, hey, you might only work 3 days a week, so you come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So how do we build that into our parking system and also our transit system? Because there are people that use our transit line only 2 days a week because they only go to work 2 days a week and they work from home the other 3. So there is a variance that we're trying to figure out what is the new normal, and with that, how do we support that the best we can?
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, Greg, thank you so much. The Do Ride really stepped up to fill a need this year, and has every year, but in particular this year. So I really appreciate the work that you and all your volunteers do, and just wanted to echo what everybody was saying up here. So thanks for being here tonight and speaking up. Well, I think that's it. So thank you very much, Ryan, Transportation Services. Really appreciate the presentation, and looking forward to another good year.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, we have reached that moment. We have reached the final act of our budget party. We will switch over now to our final presentation, the engineering department. So we are here. We got the full power of the entire engineering department almost with us tonight.
no,
so
no,
yeah,
no.
almost. So yeah, Gus, take it away. We're ready for you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Gus Sahoya, City Engineer, and I present to you the Engineering Department budget. With me tonight is Project Manager Steve Sampson Brown, Environmental Engineer Max O'Brien, Traffic Engineer Justine Hall, which will all help me present tonight. Also here tonight is Professional Land Surveyor, Civil Engineer Nate Kiefer, Traffic Engineer Dwayne Richter, Civil Engineer Nate Steffen, and Facilities Manager Justin Hogan. Bob Shizzle, Assistant City Engineer, took ill like at 6 o'clock today, so he's not going to be here, so I'm going to attempt to do his portion here tonight. The mission statement of the Engineering Department. The Engineering Department promotes the health, safety, and welfare of all through sound engineering principles, practices, and partnerships applied to planning, design, maintenance, and the preservation of the city's infrastructure and property. I'll start the presentation out by thanking Darren Muring for 25 years of service to the engineering department and Charlie Gow for 16 years of service. Darren obviously went to the Water Resource and Recovery Center, and Charlie went to the Water Department. We truly miss both of those great engineering staff members. We have multiple opening positions we're trying to fill, and in this slide, this shows the dates when they became vacant. One example of the recruiting challenges that we have in engineering was the environmental engineer, which took over 2 years to fill. The engineering department organization chart includes 41.71 full-time equivalents. This includes our facilities management staff, engineering staff, and seasonal interns. We run the department like a full-service engineering firm. We provide assistance to other departments and can design projects from conceptual state to final completion. The engineering department continually incorporates equity in our work through an equitable community of choice pillars of planning, partnership, and people. As part of the engineering department equity plan, we focus on youth mentoring activities to expose potential careers in the engineering and construction industries. We participate in MFC teen career fairs and other community events like the Party for the Planet at the Mississippi River Museum. And we coordinate with the Dubuque Community School District, participating in senior high and Hempstead schools. We have 5 major sanitary projects that we've initiated or underway, and we'll talk more about those later in the presentation, as well as we have like 5 major storm sewer projects that we'll talk about that we're also undertaking right now. Currently, we have 6 major street projects in engineering that are on our to-do list. Again, we'll talk about those in a few minutes. Other initiatives include completing final design of the smart traffic routing and efficient and effective traffic systems, our streets project. As a reminder, this is a project that will improve traffic signal coordination based on real-time patterns. We continue to spend a lot of time coordinating with internet providers, particularly ImOn on the citywide fiber to the home project. And our staff will be involved in right-of-way permitting and traffic control with the lead water surface replacement project coming up. We have a couple ongoing subdivision projects. We are doing field inspection services related to our future city assets. We have many site development reviews. All these require multiple reviews with our city staff. We go back and forth with the developers and the representatives to get a plan that we're happy with and the contractors and developers are happy with. We continue to be involved in formal partnering with community members. Engineering has one improvement package, and that's to convert a small car for our right-of-way technician to a pickup truck. The FY25 property tax support for engineering department is $749,299, and we have $11.12 that the average homeowner pays. Next, our environmental engineer, Max O'Brien, will be presenting the stormwater and the sanitary budget.
Thanks. I'm not as tall as Gus. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Max O'Brien. I'm a civil engineer with a focus on water and environmental resources. Just want to take some time and talk about our recommended sanitary sewer budgets. So I won't spend too much time here because I talked to you off last month about it, but wanted to talk about our ongoing sanitary sewer asset management program. Through this program, we're systematically evaluating our sewer system in terms of criticality and risk. The goal of this program is so that we can develop more dynamic and repeatable processes to help us make more efficient data-driven recommendations with our projects. So during the special work session last month, we were asked, how is this program going to aid in our budgetary processes? So even though we're very early in this program, we're absolutely utilizing the concepts and the lessons learned that we've learned so far, even with this year's CIP recommendations. So we've been addressing the critical sewer assets with a risk-based focus, and specifically in terms of areas served, was one of our large early efforts in this program. We redefined our sewer sheds to reflect that, and that's kind of what all these maps are showing. So these 4 sewer sheds are each served by one major lift station facility, and this was a big baseline for a lot of the analysis and the efforts and recommendations we have in the upcoming slides. So Gus, not to contradict Gus, but we have quite a few more than 5 projects. So everything on this list are just the sanitary sewer related projects we have ongoing. We're working very hard to kind of complete all these projects within the timeframes listed here, but just so I'm going to take some time and talk about a few of the highlights and some of the ongoing projects, just a few of these. But before that, wanted to give a quick update on the city's consent decree compliance program, which is the basis for several of those projects on that previous list. So the consent decree program with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, the IDNR, and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, took effect in 2011 with the goal to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows, or SSOs, within the sanitary sewer collection system. So the primary concerns identified within our system was to address excessive inflow and infiltration, or I&I. We love acronyms in engineering. Within the 5 specific sewer sheds that are shown here, but each of these are served by the Cedar Street and the Terminal Street lift stations, kind of shown in the blue and the red areas. So happy to say that over the years, the city, we've made great progress in addressing all the identified I&I issues, with about 90% of the corrective action plan that we agreed upon with the EPA completed. So that corrective action plan was split between public and private sewer assets. The public being anything that we identify that was directly affected or correlated with the city sewer main, and the private items just being anything that we identified that would be affecting just the lateral between the homes or the private buildings and the sewer main. So the 5 projects here are essentially the remaining projects within our corrective action plan. The 2 at the top are what's currently funded. The 3 at the bottom, those are planned in future fiscal years. But the Auburn and Custer project is the largest and most involved of this, and you'll probably see it in several of the department budgets, just for various aspects of that project. The Catfish Creek sewer shed was identified through various studies as just a high-risk infrastructure area with limited capacities, or limited current and future capacity. The recommended budget includes 3 phases of this of projects within the sewer shed. The first being the Old Mill Road Lift Station project, which is the dark blue. The second being some preliminary phases that upgrade the South Fork Interceptor, roughly between Old Mill Road and North Cascade Road. And the third being a sewer extension from North Cascade Road down to the Southwest Arterial Interchange that'll help support some anticipated developments in future city growth. So just kind of touching on the Old Mill Road project. This is the first project in the Catfish Creek sewer sheds. The new station has a design capacity of approximately 20 million gallons per day, and it will also set it up to allow for larger and deeper gravity sewers that will facilitate those future phases. This project will also take the pressure off of the existing Catfish Creek sewer shed, which is located kind of right next to it at the top of that orange area there. The Catfish Creek sewer shed or lift station currently has a design capacity of about 8 million gallons per day, but that one station serves the entirety of the green and the yellow areas currently. So the Old Mill Road lift station will split that in half and just alleviate the pressures off that. So for Old Mill Road lift station, the design is complete, and we're in the process of obtaining all of our final permits and getting easements, but we anticipate advertising this project for construction here this summer. And we estimate construction to completion to be by the end of calendar year 2026. So the Terminal Street lift station is another major lift station we identified that's within our recommended budget. The Terminal Street lift station serves Area 2, the blue area in the map. Prior studies identified this station having several structural and mechanical concerns that don't allow it to operate as the most efficiently. So the requested budget is to start implementing some of those recommended improvements from those prior studies. Again, the Granger Creek lift station is another one of those major lift stations. This one serves Area 4. It was originally constructed in 1999 to serve the Dubuque Technology Park in Key West. But today, the design capacity is only 500,000 gallons a day. So the recommended improvements will bring it up to about 3 million gallons a day, just to allow us to support future growth and development in the southern areas of the city. The Kerper Boulevard lift station was identified for improvements both in support of providing adequate capacity for an upcoming development in the area, but also to address some maintenance and operation concerns with the existing station. But at the same time, kind of taking a more holistic approach as part of the design with this project, we're evaluating and considering future improvements to the trackline sewer, which is that area highlighted in red in the map. The trackline sewer was identified as a very high-risk sewer through all of our analysis, just due to lack of capacity, poor condition, and poor access for maintenance activities, just due to the proximity of the railroad, which you can see that's an example of just one portion of that alignment. So the reason I bring that up is as part of the lift station design for this project, we're kind of taking a more holistic approach and setting up that lift station to serve a portion of that service area so that we could start setting it up for those future improvements as we move ahead. This project's currently under design, and we're anticipating to be advertised for construction by the end of the calendar year. So another thing is we're continuing to proceed with our sanitary sewer CCTV inspection and cleaning program to both improve upon our system performance and identify sewer defects before they fail. On average, between pipeline manholes, we identify approximately $350,000 worth of, I'll call them priority repairs. This program kind of works in tandem with our asset management program. The findings from this and the work or feed into the asset management program and vice versa. So they work very well together. And we're in the process of reviewing all of our historic data and prioritizing all of those various sub-sewer sheds just to kind of prioritize, optimize a cleaning and inspection schedule to just improve system performance and just more efficient with our operations staff time. So this slide and the next few slides are just some examples of these priority sewer repairs that we've identified this year through the CCTV program. And I just want to stress our goal with the program is to catch these defects and failures before they reach the service, like they do in this slide, or in this example. These examples here, 2 locations, were actually work that was completed within the last 2 weeks. Sewer failures such as these require immediate attention or action so that the sewer service can be continued. We avoid an SSO or any backups into private properties, and we can protect the vehicle and pedestrian safety. So all that being said, as part of our CCTV program and the asset management program, we are working on ways to save on these emergency repair costs and optimize those with city staff. So these 2 examples here, or 3 examples, I apologize, are actually also within the last month or so of locations where we identified defects, but they hadn't progressed to a point of failure yet. So we were able to work with Public Works staff and do shallow sanitary sewer repairs with that. The one on the left actually included a little bit of stream bank stabilization as well. The one on the right were trenchless spot repair opportunities that we were able to put in a sleeve and repair the pipe without putting in any excavation, and saved us a lot of costs. technologies such as this, we're evaluating those and just seeing kind of what kind of equipment we would need to have on hand where we could just have it, or the operations staff have that in the truck, so when they find these things, they could address them as they go. In things like this, had we found them sooner, would have worked very well in instances like the previous slides. So again, just kind of want to emphasize that through the asset management and the CCTV program, we're evaluating ways to expand upon these efforts where we could do more repairs in-house. So lastly, the recommended sewer budget includes funding to support sanitary sewer improvements out on the island. Staff has identified structural defects, capacity constraints, and excessive I&I in the sewer on the island, specifically on the north half. A lot of that is due to just settlement of the old landfill material, so it wasn't necessarily a sewer failure, it just dropped below the sewer and things are breaking. So this project will address those major defects, but will also support the anticipated developments that are being evaluated as part of the island master plan with the DRA. So to close out on all things sanitary, this is just kind of a list of all the various projects we have in the recommended budget for sanitary sewer. So putting on my other hat. So this year I'll also be talking about the stormwater management budget. So kind of taking a similar approach to the sanitary sewer sheds, using those lessons learned. Kind of wanted to talk about the city's stormwater drainage basins. So the United States Geological Survey, or the USGS, has identified 5 major drainage basins that are the city of Dubuque falls within. We've kind of taken those and broken them down a little bit more just to be a little bit more detailed in our analysis. So the various colors here are essentially the equivalent of those sewer sheds on the sanitary side, just more, for stormwater. So the city is responsible for managing each of these drainage basins under our municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4. Again, we love acronyms. So our MS4 permit in compliance with the Federal Clean Water Act. The goal of the MS4 permit is to promote both adequate water quality and quantity management to mitigate flooding and environmental concerns within each of those drainage basins. So when I say water quality, ultimately the goal is just pollutant reduction. So the examples of the petroleum and the sediment shown here, we're trying to eliminate those or avoid those issues getting into our waterways. The quantity goal is just to ensure that we provide adequate capacity within our storm sewer or the waterways, just to prevent flooding or reduce as much flooding as we can. So as Gus mentioned previously, the engineering department aids the site plan review process for developments throughout the city. In terms of stormwater management, these plan review and calculation reviews are essentially a first line of defense, just that we can ensure that all of these projects will not negatively impact downstream waterway quality or capacity. So once these projects go through the site plan process, we continue to monitor them through the design, the construction, in some cases long-term maintenance, just to ensure that they're compliant with the design plan and with our MS4 permit. So any site that's disturbing more than an acre requires to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan, or a SWIP, and is required to have quarterly inspections, just to make sure they're still in compliance. So this past year, we've performed 252 quarterly inspections of construction sites, over 86 construction sites. So again, there are, aside from just the construction sites, we have stormwater control facilities or structures such as detention ponds or bubbler structures. Sorry, not to get in the weeds on that, but some of those are subject to long-term monitoring for our MS4 compliance. We have to inspect them annually, just to ensure that everything hasn't changed. There's no major erosion. Everything is still functioning the way as it was designed. This past year, we inspected 256 of these stormwater management structures. So the big one here is, for on the stormwater side, is the recommended budget includes provisions for the next phase of the B Branch flood mitigation project. This project is the B Branch Gate and Pump Replacement Project, which involves a replacement of the existing stormwater pumping station on Kerper Boulevard. The existing pump station functions in conjunction with the flood wall and levee system that protects the city from the Mississippi floodwaters. So when the Mississippi's in flood stage, stormwater runoff from the B branch has to be pumped over the levee back into the river. So the existing station is well over 50 years, and several of its components are that much or that old or even predating when the flood wall was put in. So it just requires some TLC. So the recommended improvements will mitigate flooding and increase resilience by handling floodwaters from the B Branch Creek, providing about a 500-year flood event protection. It'll double the pump capacity. It provides flexible gate operation to drain the basin under extreme flood conditions. It gives easy access to remove debris and from the trash racks and do other maintenance activities for staff. And it's going to provide backup generators to ensure operations during storm events. The recommended budget allows the advertisement for this project for construction this summer, with the estimated construction completion by the end of calendar year 26. So the recommended budget provides funding plan that includes just under about $16 million in state and federal funding to offset costs to the Dubuque citizens. The recently adopted federal funding bill includes an additional $8 million in community project funding for the project, which will be administered by FEMA. Typically, FEMA can't be used with other federal funding, but our federal partners have communicated to us that we will be able to use both the funding sources on this project. And we're working with them over the next few weeks just to better understand how to proceed with that. For example, they indicated we may need to split the work up between two very distinct phases so that the EDA would be this and the FEMA would be that. So by using the FEMA funding, we may delay the project schedule overall, just because even though that we've gone through, for example, we've gone through an environmental review process with EDA, but FEMA has their entirely separate environmental process. We just got to go through all those steps. So to summarize, this is just kind of a list of all of the recommended projects within the stormwater management budget. So to meet the needs of this recommended budget, the monthly stormwater fee for the average homeowner is proposed to go from increase by about $1.50 from an average of $10 a month to an average of $11.50 a month. So this slide's provided just for comparison of Dubuque's stormwater utility rate among Iowa's largest communities. Dubuque does have the second highest rate, but over the last few years, that gap has been steadily closing. So finally, since 2003, when the stormwater utility was established, the city has provided subsidies to offset the cost of these fees. So these subsidies are for property tax exemptions, low to moderate income households, and residential farming operations. And this is proposed to continue within the next year's budget. And I believe it was Bob. So, thank you.
Okay, good evening again. Gus Sahoya, City Engineer. I'll be presenting the streets right-of-way management, sidewalk, trails portion of the budget tonight. The engineering department manages the public right-of-way. Here's some stats for the work that we've done in the past year. Right-of-way permits issuance continue to be high. A lot of these are related to the fiber to the home project that I talked about previously. Our department locates all city utilities within 48 hours of notice of an excavation as required by Iowa law. So we locate sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water main, fiber, and also the electrical conduit to our streetlights. For sidewalk inspection, we follow the Public Works Overlay Program. So we inspect all the sidewalks the year after it's completed. And so if they do 5 miles, we do approximately 10 linear miles of sidewalk that we inspect every year. This is a map or a heat map of the Iowa One Call locator request over the year. Last year, we received 8,953 locates. We do have 2 full-time locators, and all our engineering techs are also trained because we do a 365, 7 days a week, so we're on call all the time. We are in the 3rd year of a volunteer program that's called DBQ Shovel Crew. This is an effort involved in recruiting. We've got 18 volunteers that assist with removing snow from public sidewalks at 31 locations. Residents need to financially qualify for this program when they're unable to perform the work themselves. It's a first come, first serve. We turned down many last year. Residents can sign up with the DBQ website and the City of Dubuque website. So thank you to the 18 volunteers that we had last year. JFK Sidewalk Project was the Safe Routes to School project that was completed last year. We spent many years reviewing that project. It was completed last year, and we do notice quite a few pedestrians using the sidewalk now on a daily basis. The B Branch Trail Phase 1 is essentially complete. Staff's working with the DOT and the contractor on final quantities. Here's a map view of the B Branch Trail around the Alliance Solar Field. At 12th Street, engineering staff are working on planning another phase of this trail in the future to circle around the detention basin and make a connection to the historic Millwork District. The Kerper Court and Kerper Boulevard roundabout is now complete. Engineering staff is working with Leisure Services to finish the landscaping portion in the center island. Operation of the roundabout is working very well. Here's the Chaplain Schmidt Connector Trail project. This project will connect from the Piasta Channel Trail to beyond the Veterans Memorial Site on the island. Construction is underway right now, expected to be finished this May. The reconstruction of Heath Street is scheduled for this year. This will be a full street reconstruction project with storm sewer, sanitary sewer. There's a couple houses that actually don't have sanitary sewer up there. They're on a septic tank and new water main. We're currently finishing the design for this project. We'll bid it this summer, and hopefully we'll get it completed this year. There are 3 green alleys planned for the downtown area. They include locations as shown here on the map. City staff is currently doing public outreach with the property owners on the project. The pavement funding is using SRF clean water funds that will leverage the B Branch Railroad Culvert project. Here's the map actually just showing the location. They're basically between 18th and 16th, between White Street and Central Avenue. The one portion of the other portion is between Central and Iowa Street. So we'll be completing those hopefully in the next several months. Street maintenance was listed as City Council top priority, and pavement rehabilitation and preservation capital improvements program support that goal. This program provides funding to complete pavement rehabilitation on streets that are deteriorating condition. We're planning on doing the intersection at Plaza Drive in the Northwest Arterial. Also, we're planning on North Grand View, north of Loris to Audubon, and we're also evaluating several street sections in the Sunny Slope subdivision. Another successful project that we completed after 2 years of construction was the rehabilitation and the reconstruction of Northwest Arterial from US 20 to JFK Road. The project was completed within budget and on time prior to opening of school last fall. Due to the hard work of city staff and great teamwork of the many contractors on the project, the city received the 2023 Robert Natty Award for Excellence for best paving project in the state of Iowa. This was a $9 million project, and it was a big effort by our engineering department. And I want to acknowledge the dedication of Nate Steffen, Hugh McCarron, and Luke Rupp for the many days and nights that they spent on the project, and also Bob Schissel was on that project also, so thank you, Bob, too. Talk about the East-West Corridor Capacity Improvements project that we've initiated. In an effort to advance this council priority, the city has already completed $3.2 million worth of work in this corridor, including the 2 roundabouts and the signal work, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. In December of 2021, the mayor and city council approved the selection of HDR as a consultant to complete the preliminary engineering design and environmental clearance phase to advance the East-West Corridor Improvement Project along University. This graphic is a preliminary design concept for the corridor and includes the improvements at Delhi, Loris, Asbury, and the Pennsylvania intersection. In 2022, the city was awarded a raised planning grant to assist the planning and design of the multimodal transportation corridor project entitled Building Bridges to Employment and Equity. In February of 2024, the mayor and city council approved the selection of AECOM as a consultant to complete the engineering design for this project. So I want to also thank the Racing Association for their participation in this project. The planning grant is, as you can see here, $4.3 million. On February 28th, the city submitted an application to the U.S. Department of Transportation for the raised capital implementation grant to assist with funding for the proposed improvements to construct specific elements of the Building Bridges to Employment and Equity project. You can see here it's a $38.7 million construction project, and $30.24 million is actually for the bridge over the CP railroad tracks. So we also, this is the funding for the raised grant. We're planning on getting $25 million if everything goes good from the raised planning grant, and then the local funds and DMATs are also participating, and hopefully we'll get some CPKC railroad private participation in the amount of about 3% of the project. Also, the total project cost, as we have it outlined right now, is $43.1 million. It's the planning grant of $4.3 million, and plus the capital improvement implementation grant of $38.7 million. In February of 2023, the East Central Intergovernmental Association, or ECIA, and our regional local partners were notified that we were awarded the Safe Streets for All grant, the SS4A grant, that will assist the development of a regional network comprehensive safety action plan. Iowa State University Institute for Transportation will lead the effort to develop a comprehensive safety action plan for the regional roadway network to achieve long-term objective plan to reduce injuries and toward working to 0 deaths in the area. Here's a slide showing a project that we're hoping that we get funded. It's the Northwest Arterial and US 20 intersection. As you know, that intersection is at capacity, and we're looking and working with the DOT to help fund a project that would actually eliminate the fourth leg at Walmart and improve that whole corridor there. It's a $17.2 million project, $17.5 million project, and the DOT's planning on funding, or hopefully planning on funding $12 million along with $5.5 million. In fact, today, staff members and the mayor went down and presented our case to the DOT Commission, so hopefully we'll get awarded that grant this summer. Moving the Southwest Arterial Corridor of the city and the DOT, our continued development and implementing the Intelligent Transportation System, or ITS, network along the Southwest Arterial. The city, the IODOT, will be installing fiber optic communication ITS network consisting of cameras, sensors, dynamic message boards, and other related technologies to support transportation and public safety application. The city is responsible for designing, constructing, and operating and maintaining the fiber optical communication system. We will be maintaining that after it is complete. Here is a list of 2025 capital improvement projects related to street. And here's some related to sidewalk improvements for cities' sidewalks that we own and maintain. Also, here is a list of capital improvements projects in the 25 budget related to trails. And here's a slide that just shows that Bob Shizzle has been working with Marie Ware on the HVA system at the ImOn Arena. So next, Justine Hall, our traffic engineer, will present the traffic operations budget.
Good evening. Justine Hull, traffic engineer. I will be presenting the traffic operations budget. So getting into kind of our breakdown of duties this is a great short list of what is kind of demanded, I guess, or what we kind of work on with the 3 in-office staff that we have in the Traffic Operations Center. But this has definitely been an increase in work for the fiber network and broadband expansion, and including that with the signal operations due to our streets project, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Some prior year highlights. We have been working in partnership with a couple private communications to install fiber duct. And ImOn has been a main component of that with their fiber to the home project. And we have placed 44,000 linear feet of 7-way fiber duct, or fiber duct in general, however you want to visualize it. But we continue those private partnerships, and over at JFK and 32nd, a signalized intersection was constructed as well. Some future initiatives that we are planning. Our first priority is the communication connection to the new data center over on Chavanel Road. I'm sure Chris Coleman with IS has spoken about this. But this would basically connect our downtown to our west end, and we would populate those routes that are coming together with fiber and follow up with any failover routes as well for any possible and hopefully preventable, but looking into fiber cuts and emergencies. I will kind of show a backbone loop of this in a future slide, but also continuing and always dealing with more up and coming fiber to the home builds and public-private partnerships. But secondly, we would be moving on to our phase 2 of our streets project, which also kind of dovetails with this SMART grant, SMART meaning strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation grant, and with connected vehicles. That was put through with the help of ECIA for a $2 million grant titled the Metro Dubuque Traffic Data Aggregation for Connected Vehicles. Lots of words in that title. I do not like it, but that would basically be using cellular to pass transportation data to everybody. So that's your vehicle to signals, signals to cars, signals to people, people to cars. It's everything connected through your cellular device. And lastly, kind of looking at our signal list, as Asbury Road is a priority for us on that. Going back to kind of that connection, I just wanted to reinvigorate us a little bit about how beautiful our downtown looks and this wonderful AI-generated picture of technology integrated with our town. And saying that our primary goal is to use these technologies to improve efficiency and reduce overall costs to provide a better service to our citizens. So with that service, we have been working with ImOn. So this is ImOn's fiber to the home map. Currently this year, in the red on the north end of town, kind of like Roosevelt, Shiras area, they are planning on implementing 17 cabinets, which is around 6,500 addresses. And the intent of this is to show you where ImOn is going to be, but also showing you where we haven't been able to go because of the cost of getting in these certain areas. And I'm sure ImOn is figuring that out, that there's a lot of rock up there. So dealing with that, when we jointly build with a private entity, we are able to connect to those unforeseen areas with our city needs at a reduced cost. And we kind of go into our other city communication needs, and we want to make sure that they are all met when we are looking at this private partnership that we have. So we're working with the water department with their SCADA system, and we're working with parks and traffic, and working with PD to make sure we have cameras where we need it to be. But also with that, we want to not only reduce that cost when we jointly build, but also saving our space and preserving our right-of-way. So connecting all those city facilities is important, and we want to reflect that in our joint builds, but again, we want to make sure that we are lowering that cost and preserving our right-of-way for other utilities as well. And going back to kind of our data center with our major backbone loop, as Gus stated, with the Southwest Arterial, we're working with the DOT to make sure that we have that fiber connection on there. But while we work in this 25-mile loop, we are able to connect everywhere within the city. And kind of like wink, wink, our data center is right on Chavanel, which I don't know if that was planned, but it feels great that it's over there and that it's on our backbone route. So the other thing is we want to make sure that that redundancy is in place. So any connection that we have, that middle kind of line through our little Texas loop here, is our east-west redundancies for those future fiber cuts or possible excavations that are unforeseen. Lastly, what I want to point out on this slide is that this loop, again, would connect the whole city, but we have that 7-way duct that is leasable to other private entities, and we can take that money and we can contribute it to other little fiber infrastructure connection pieces that we need around the city for those city needs. Kind of all of these slides come together. Lastly, I want to talk about with fiber is our broadband group that we do meet two times a month. Since 2016, this group has helped improve and promote the growth of broadband throughout the city, and honestly, I think even the county. Of course, we have our goals and priorities that we try to set, but also what this is that our coordination. We need to coordinate with the contractors in upcoming projects because this is a utility. If you're moving a utility, we need to have a conversation about it. And having that connection and that you're still live, we want to make sure that that is a connection that you're still having during the project, during construction. So I think the broadband group does a great job facilitating that. And these are some of our public-private partnerships that we deal with and will continue to deal with if we have the private investment that is happening in our town. And it's the best opportunity to partner to lower costs for them, to lower costs for us, and then again, preserve our right-of-way. And here is the funding to kind of make that magic happen. Now I want to kind of get into the other side of our traffic is our traffic operations center. So we currently manage 1,367 city-owned cameras in 257 locations. But if you add the school district or the county, that would bump up to 2,500 cameras. And that is used by our own staff and engineering for our streets project, which I'll talk about next. Also PD, fire, public works, animal control, basically any department that sees a benefit has the opportunity to reach out and use this to their benefit. So using our cameras with our streets project streets is turning into our new control system. So that means When you see a signal and flash, or you see the wonderful coordination that we have downtown, that is our controllers and our system and all the back things that you don't normally think about. That is what this streets is trying to do. They're doing a little bit more with trying to reroute people into different areas and underutilized streets, but our cameras are a main portion of that to make sure that, hey, these people are going this way, and we have that data for that type of delay. Now, Streets is currently rolling out this spring, and we are slowly implementing our signals into the system, but we are anticipating some customizations and some tweaks once that goes live. And here is the funding to keep those cameras up and running. And continuing my conversation with the signal operations, this is one of our biggest funding sources to help keep our signals maintained and upgraded. We currently have 117 signals. That includes the new one at JFK and 32nd. And we manage that through detection, preemption, battery backups, kind of everything listed there. Now, these systems are pivotal in making sure that the actual signal is operating to its full capacity. And this is another wonderful list of what our public works traffic techs and Dwayne Richter, traffic engineer, who is instrumental in keeping these systems operating and maintained. Now, it's not only signals that you have to worry about, it's pedestrian-centric items like audible crosswalks or even signalized crosswalks that you see over by schools and things like that. But it's also streetlights. I'm kind of categorizing it as anything vertical and electrically connected, we have to make sure that it's operating in the right of way properly. So I can go deep dive into the development part of that, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is the major funding source for our signals and streetlights and traffic equipment. Now, lastly, my favorite part of the traffic portion is kind of the behavioral planning side of things. This year we are working with Central Avenue and White Street Corridor Traffic Study. This is one of the larger projects that we're going to have this year. Engineering and economic development have worked together to create this holistic corridor study for this one-way pair. Pretty large one-way pair. And so basically what this is going to show us is how we can approach this corridor and create a people-centric space that is safe and enriching for its residents, business owners, and visitors. And we will be taking those details at the end, when the study is over, at the end of the year, and seeing what we can implement. This is happening like now, soon, whatever timeline you want to beat, like this week. So they're starting already. So I would anticipate citizens to be taking full advantage of any engagement that will be happening in the next couple of months, and also engaging with their city council members to be a part of this project. Continuing with my traffic studies, fortunately for me, everything was, developed the last year. And so all the traffic stuff kind of happens as kind of step 0, step A, step 1. So I didn't have a lot of traffic studies. That's a big portion. You're looking at a lot of data. But that doesn't mean that the development that has gone through our development review team doesn't mean that we don't look at any traffic analysis. We review traffic studies, traffic analysis, signage, pavement markings, turning movements, driveway aprons, queuing, sight distance, street lighting, and fiber. So it was more of a calm year this past year, but still making sure that we're looking at those certain analysis with each proposed development. Also looking into visibility requests to make things safer and mobility, keeping the mobility open for sidewalks and things. And our traffic counters definitely love a good sunny day for anywhere that we don't really have cameras. And lastly, I wanted to touch on is our temporary traffic control. This last year compared to the year prior, my temporary traffic control review has doubled. I don't know if that really reflects the loads of construction work that is happening, whether it's public or private. I'm still working with these departments, other departments within the city and private contractors, but making sure that our crews and our public are safe in these work zones is a priority. So I will move on to facilities.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Sampson Brown, Project Manager, here to talk about our facilities management team and also some project management work we do. So this year, major accomplishment, we got Anderson and Temwa and everybody at the Office of Shared Prosperity moved into 18th and Central, great location. I think it has one of the best views in the city, looking south down Central Avenue, so it's good to see that building become fully reutilized and adding vitality to the neighborhood. This year we did not have a plan, but the annex roof, as you see from the photo on the right, needed emergency replacement, so we were able to get together an emergency bid. We now have a new steel roof that's got a good 50-year plus lifespan on it. And everyone thinks the building looks a little bit better, so that's good for the neighborhood. And I just want to show you on our top right, that's our drone technology. We're actually using our thermal imaging lens to look at is the snow melt system working in the gutter. So just another way we leverage our drone technology, and it saves us a lot of time and effort to fly with a thermal image versus set up and manually inspect. We also completed the city facilities, downtown city facility study. Had a lot of good collaboration with staff on that, and we're already starting our first phase here into implementation soon. Justin did a great work helping the community policing office get up and going here just down the hall at the federal building, so they're ready to go and move into their new space. Some of the other things, just list on the left, buildings and facilities and locations we are currently responsible for. And then also the facilities management team helps other departments. I like to think about it, you want your police and fire chief working on being out with the public, fighting fires, fighting crime. Justin and I can come in, understand their needs, help them facilitate things, and lets department managers focus on core services for their department. So it tends to work together pretty well. Quick list of projects. So federal building, 2008, when we created this council chamber and housing on the third floor, we replaced about 60% of the mechanical equipment in the building, and not much has been replaced since then. So we're moving towards a major project to modernize all pieces of equipment that are currently in the building. So that we'll be doing that over this year and next year. The other list of projects seems kind of small, but with Justin's help, I think we've done a great job getting from reactive maintenance of things breaking and jumping on it to now getting more into preventative maintenance. So small dollars add up over time and provide users of our building some reliability. So when you come in on Monday morning, it's not 62 degrees and you're distracted because the heat's not on. We're able to work through and get some of our core systems upgraded, more reliable, so these small dollar projects really help us increase that reliability within the buildings we manage. Talked about the energy equipment. We still have to replace the roof on the penthouse. You can see that's the black roof. That's about 30 years old now, due for replacement. The loading dock, again, it looks good from about 5 feet away, but there's a lot of cracks in it. If we get driving rain, we actually get water leaking into the basement, so we need to replace that. And the back parking lot is nice and flat, which also allows water to pool up on the south side of the building and leak into the basement, so we have funding to replace the parking lot. Just touching on some of our miscellaneous projects. So again, moving from facilities more to construction project management. So myself and others in the engineering department helped out with Comiskey Park, Iowa and Locust Ramps. We did some short-term repairs, working on a few lift stations, helping out Darren up at the Water and Resource Recovery Center, hopefully getting the high-strength waste project going soon. Justin's done a lot of work with Chris Coleman's team on integrated access controls, so that's that automated building controls where we're looking for temperatures and also alarms. So when boiler doesn't kick on, somebody gets a text message, we know that, hey, we've got a problem and gotta check that out. Fire stations 5 and 6, two of our oldest fire stations received our new trucks. They used to carry 500 gallons, they now carried 1,000, and that's a little extra weight. So we have no blueprints on those floor plans, so we had to work with Mike Jansen at Strand Associates, and we went through some analysis to make sure that the truck was gonna stay on the first floor and not end up in the basement. So with confidence now, those stations are ready for that truck. And helping the library out, they have an underground storage tank, and we've been preparing to assist them. They have budget to get that removed. Russ and Ryan were here tonight. We talked about smart parking and mobility, exciting project for Dubuque. Quiet zone, so everybody loves trains, especially when they're moving. With the recent merger of CPKC, we're expecting by 2027 about 18 trains a day. That data supplied by the railroad does not include when other rail carriers, so Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, so it may actually be more than 18 trains a day. So myself, Assistant City Engineer Bob Shizzle, and other staff, we've been working through with partnership with ECIA, the Quiet Zone study, and we've be back within about 45 days with a recommendation on specific treatments at specific locations to make safety improvements. We have Dubuque's first fast charger currently working in the Port of Dubuque. I believe working with Randy Gale for possible ribbon cutting. People are using it. We're going to get some graphics on it so it stands out a little bit better, but people are pulling up and using it a couple times a day. And next phase, Gina Bell has another grant that we're collaborating on in place. We're already designing for a second fast charger, and we're going to locate that out in the back parking lot here at the Federal Building. So if you come to Five Flags, lower main area, and just need a charge, and you're driving your EV, so we're working to try and get some diversity or trying to spread the units around downtown. We also were unsuccessful with a grant application for a few more units, and working with Terry Goodman, we'll be reapplying for that next round of federal funding. Schmidt Island redevelopment plan, so working with Q Casino, Alex Dixon, he's been back here to tell you several times over the last several months about $150+ million of effort happening on the island or near around it. As I travel, just working different site development conversations, connectivity to the island and the outdoor recreation and fun experience that it offers is definitely things that I hear in the community. So folks in the Millwork District, Art Museum are all looking forward to improved connections to the island, so as people are visiting their facility, they're experiencing the rest of downtown Dubuque. Schmidt Island Amphitheater, again, another DRA collaboration with the city of Dubuque. We have Destination Iowa grant, and DRA is going to fund almost $9 million of the amphitheater. We will be going out, we are on schedule to go out to bid in October of this calendar year. We'll be building it through calendar year 25, and we plan to be open for business, and the first concerts in the spring of 26 when the DRA is ready to schedule those. So exciting project on the island. A lot of help with Jill Connors, Economic Development, Wally Wernemont, Planning, Marie Ware, Leisure Services. So great city team collaboration on that project. Sorry, one more. Riverfront lease revenue. Again, in 2008, the city council took the position we wanted to get fair market rents for our riverfront properties. So over the past 15 years, we've transitioned out of some of our lower value leases, and all the current leases on the riverfront are at fair market value, and our revenue's over $4 million this year for the first time. We have some funding to deconstruct the ABC Supply Building. Sits right, that's the Highway 20 bridge in the background. Sits right by Highway 151. Aesthetically, not the best building in Dubuque, but also has a lot of high visibility. So there's a reuse potential and redevelopment potential for this site, so we want to get it ready for that next new project. And we have the Incremental Development Project, which represents a collaboration between the Office of Shared Prosperity, Economic Development, Housing, and Engineering departments. This project takes a community engagement approach to revitalize buildings and activate storefront retail spaces. Our department work stops at the edge of the right-of-way. As Justine talked about the Central and White Street project. But in places such as Central Avenue, we know there's more work to be done. This CIP will give city staff an additional tool in the toolbox to create that neighborhood vibrancy. And with that, we thank you tonight for your support, and we're happy to receive any questions.
All right. Well, thank you all. You can take a breath now. Nice. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We're watching time. Very happy to see it. All right. So first up, we are in a public hearing to discuss the engineering budget for fiscal year 25. Do we have any public input on this? Come on down, Clark. Good to see you.
Clark Slows, 2925 Burlington Street. Just got a couple of questions and one comment. The first question for concrete street rehabs, maybe now or in the future, if you're considering using asphalt interlayers or high pro asphalt. And the other question, the Iowa legislature was considering legislation that will require cities or local governments that have stormwater requirements that are stricter than Iowa DNR or federal regulations would be responsible for those increased additional costs if, anything, the city has looked at that and what effects that would have upon the city. And the comment I have is, in the recent past, developers have kind of given traffic studies a bad name, treating them like they're unnecessary burdens. They're not. They're a useful tool to determine, well, if this development goes in, what problems could occur? A well-functioning intersection before development may turn into a problem intersection once the development is fully developed and may require turn lanes, traffic signals. What additional cost would that development cause to public infrastructure? That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Clark, for your comments. Do we have any other public input this evening? See no one else here. Anything virtually? Nothing?
Nope.
City Clerk's office? Nothing there either? All right. Back to us then. I'm going to kick it off because I actually kind of wouldn't mind getting the answers to the questions that Mr. Slow just asked there. The concrete street rehab question first. It's kind of one that we've talked about before. We talked about it a little bit when Public Works was here. The idea of rehabbing these concrete streets, we have a lot of them in the city. They're really expensive to completely reconstruct, we understand. But I guess the question that I'm curious about, kind of based off that question, is are we looking at various different ways to do that could be less expensive and involve more actual rehab than just the patching that we do at times?
Yeah, for instance, the North Grandview intersection, we've looked at that extensively. We've had experts across the state and the country come and look at the way those joints are deteriorating. And so we're looking at different ways that we're going to rehab that. And it might just be actually pulling the pavement out and just redoing it with asphalt. I mean, asphalt seems like we're having problems with concrete joints, and they're having them all across the state, and all across the country. So we're concerned about it. And in fact, when we did the Southwest Arterial, they recommended asphalt, and that's why you see it in asphalt most of that project.
So basically looking at all the various ways we could do that. Okay. All right. And then the stormwater bill, there are a lot of cities that were watching that carefully. My understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the way that bill is written, the impact to Dubuque currently is fairly minimal because our standards are actually pretty high and in line with what the state law is. Is that an accurate interpretation of what that bill does for us?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So but down the line, we need to be careful because we're also now, the state law limits our ability to make any movement on that. But so far, we're generally in line with what that state law is.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Those are my two questions, so I guess we can move on. Yeah, Ms. Farber.
So last night with Wally, we talked about the roundtable, the developers roundtable, and the fact that I think he and Housing were going to be organizing updates to building codes or meetings. And I noticed in your improvement package number 2 that you had requested an annual meeting with Housing to meet with developers to talk about SUDAS and some of the ordinances. Is this kind of like redundant to what Wally's team is doing, or is it in collaboration with what he's doing? Because I think it's important to keep the business developers current on all the changes.
Yeah, we're continually work with our staff and developers as we come up with changes, and when they propose something, we certainly look at it right away. They asked about changes in the stormwater specs, so we looked at those several months ago and answer their questions on that.
Okay, so this is just an annual meeting that you were proposing as opposed to what
we're
happens during the year by normal course of business?
We're still looking at it. In fact, Bob Shizzle sits on the board of SUDAS, so instrumental in helping us stay
Okay. I just want to make sure that line of
on top of it,
communication
yes.
remains open. So thank you very much. Thank you. That's all I have.
All three at the same time. That was great. Let's just go right down the line. Ms. Wethel, and then we'll head on down.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make a comment. Slide number 44, Max, it was during your presentation, the stormwater management system. It's not really a question, but just something I think is really interesting. When we do a rate comparison of like cities or larger cities in our state, Davenport ranks only 2 of the 10 cities. However, we have what I feel is going to be an incredibly resilient flood mitigation strategy. And so I want people to think about what we are doing as a city when it comes to the flood mitigation infrastructure and the difference between one city to the next and why that might be. I'm really proud of us investing in this. And so I appreciate the slide of comparison, and I think it's important for us to all look at that and say, where are people located in the state regarding their stormwater management system risk, and what is their burden upon the resident? And I think that we have to acknowledge that in Dubuque, it might be different than other places in our city, or in our state. A question I had on slide number 4, right out of the gate, on the vacancy positions. The camera technician, which has been vacant since June of 2022, just concern that I have related to that. I remember going on my initial tour and hearing about that position being vacant and how valuable that person truly is to our city and to your department. When we talk about camera maintenance, it relates to our crime clearance rate. When we talk about camera maintenance, it just integrates into so many different departments. And so my question is, what as a city council can we do, in all honesty, to make this specific position more favorable? Is it about salary? Is it about something different?
We had a candidate that was perfect, but he needed more money, and then as soon as we made him the offer, their firm offered him like $15,000 more. So we just can't compete at the salary it's at right now for the people that we want.
Yeah.
I mean, we had somebody that left after 3 months, and they told me that they doubled their salary. Not just 10 or 15%, it was double. So,
I thought that might be what you said.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Gus.
Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really excited for that streets program. I'm really excited for Central, the green alleys. So thank you for all that fun work that you have coming on your plate. But I have a question for the city manager about improvement package 4 of 6. I'm kind of intrigued by that. That's an interesting idea. I get it's a recurring cost, but the fact that we could get rid of some of the liability, the city's liability on vacant parcels, I'm kind of intrigued by that. So just thoughts as to why you didn't want to go ahead with that one this year.
Oh, I did,
Okay, because I have it no.
but I didn't recommend it because there was no money.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's lots of them that fit that category, but I agree with you. That's a great idea. It's a great program.
Okay.
There's, many parcels that fit that category. Unfortunately, they've fit that category for decades.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not an emergency to get rid of them, but it's a good idea.
Okay.
And so, and the city attorney's office would like us to do it. So I agree. It's a good one.
So I just add one thing. We are currently working on a big parcel that's city-owned that we're in the process. Nate and I have been working with the budding property owners, and we're trying to dispose of that in a way that'll benefit the city and the property owners that are budding it. So we are trying to nibble at it, but it does take an inordinate amount of time because we send them letters, we have to call them, double check it, and then get with them, and then the survey. And so it does take an effort, but we're going to try to do a few a year on our own.
Thank you, guys.
Ms. Russell.
Thank you. Mine's just a real specific question. I think it was in Justine's presentation. I just wondered if you knew when the JFK and West 32nd signals would actually be operational. The bases are there, but
Right. So we actually ordered the equipment months before we bid the project. And unfortunately, it's almost like a supply chain issue. There's just a couple little parts that are missing that our contractor that we contracted for can't install till the parts come in. They told us sometime in April the parts in, and the contractor that has the job said they'd install it right afterwards. So hopefully in May, if things work out and the parts come in, but it's that last little bit that has to come in.
And I'd like to relate that to a story that a contractor told me recently, that he's going to be building some apartments in Dubuque. And I asked him, when's he going to start construction? He said, well, the last time he built an apartment building, it was completed, but it took him a year to get the electrical boxes. So the apartments just sat there vacant. So he said, I'm not starting construction until I get the electrical boxes, which he said was going to take about a year.
This side of the table? Any more? Yeah, Mr. Jones.
What a great presentation. I thought you had
And
about 2 hours
only
worth
an
of
hour,
material.
too.
You're just under an hour. But once again, the sheer volume of things that you're somehow accomplishing with the relatively small department is impressive. It just knocks the socks off me every time I hear one of your presentations. And you've got a great team, and thank you all for being here tonight and supporting the boss and for the portions that you delivered. You're delivering some serious services to the citizens of Dubuque and at great value, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to stop and say, Steve cut me off a little bit. I just really want to express my appreciation for our outstanding staff. I mean, we're truly blessed to have these guys and ladies. They're really dedicated. And, you know, Ryan Nucky said the same thing. They're excited. These guys are excited to come to work in the morning. That's the kind of people that I want to have on the staff, too. So it's important that we get people that want to be there.
Well, Gus, and everyone, thank you very much for this presentation. The only thing I'll add, because, you know, we get a chance to ask you lots and lots of questions throughout the year because we see you so much. And one of the things that I love about your presentation every single year is how you help us and the community tie all those pieces together for all these major projects that are going on. Engineering has your hands in a lot of projects that are happening throughout the departments within the city. Not just on special projects, but almost everything when it comes to the work that engineers do. And I think it's really important that we are able to see not just what's going on, but why we're doing it and how we've decided to go about doing that. So it's not just, we don't just make quick decisions. You guys really study carefully what's going to happen and make sure that we're doing things that are going to last. One of the things I've been struck by, and this will be the last thing I say, I promise, but one of the things I've been struck by for this entire budget season that we've been going through is I've heard this theme a lot where we're not just trying to catch up in as many places as we were for a while. There was this point in time, maybe a few years ago, a lot of it had to do with the pandemic, I think, but there's been a whole lot of catch up that's being played, you know, trying to fill vacancies, trying to do all these different things. I heard a lot about looking forward this time, and that's really exciting, that we're thinking about how we can do things that are going to be forward-looking and how we're going to actually think about these projects that we can plan for that are 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road. That's an exciting place to be. I mean, that's the kind of city that I think we want to live in and the kind of city that we want to work with. So I really appreciate all the work that you do, and I really appreciate you, the stories that you tell us about it as you come in front of us like this. So thank you for everything, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for the City Council for your support.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, you guys can go home. We are going to have to stick around for a little bit, so I will entertain a motion for a closed session, please. Mr. Jones, yes.
I move that the City Council go into closed session in accordance with Chapter 21.5 of the Code of Iowa to discuss the purchase or sale of real estate.
All right.
Second by Wethel.
All right. I got a motion by Jones and a second by Wethel to enter into closed session. For the record, the attorney the City Council will consult with on the issues to be discussed in closed session is City Attorney Krenna Brumwell. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Barber?
Here.
Aye.
Oh, aye. Ethel?
Aye.
Aye.
Jones? Aye. Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
Sprank?
That motion passes 7-0. We are entering closed session.